The aristocratic district of Dressrosa, the former Duke's Manor. The reason why it is called the former Duke's Manor is because the Duke who originally lived here has been killed by Doflamingo. Today, this manor can be called the mansion of Grand Duke Liku. That's right, after all, the former king of Dressrosa who directly gave up the throne to Doflamingo, it is impossible for Doflamingo to say that he directly demoted him to a commoner, right? So now, the Liku clan can enjoy Duke treatment in Dressrosa. At this moment, on the dining table of Liku's house, Doflamingo happened to cut a piece of steak into pieces, gave some to the little girl Violet, and said with a smile, "Eat more, you can grow up quickly, Violet." Violet seemed quite happy, enjoying Doflamingo's service, feeling elated. Sitting opposite Doflamingo and Violet are the couple Riku Dold-e and their eldest daughter Scarlet. Unexpectedly, Cyrus, the former captain of the palace guard, was also sitting beside Scarlet at this time. There is no imaginary tension, and there is no particularly blunt atmosphere. Dold picked up the wine glass on the table, took a sip, and even took the initiative to ask, "This year's World Summit is about to start. When are you going to Marie Joyce to participate in the meeting?" "Speaking of this, Marine's warship is already waiting at the port, and I'll go after dinner," Doflamingo responded calmly. "So fast?" Dold was a little surprised. New World is not very peaceful right now. "It would be bad if there is a delay along the way, so we should leave more room," Doflamingo said with a smile. "The reason why the New World became like this has nothing to do with you." Dold rolled his eyes and said. "Fur. Doflamingo said with a smile. "This is the only way for Dressrosa, there is no way. Maybe it's inappropriate for me to say these words now, but Dover. If you continue like this, you will really drag the whole of Dressrosa into the abyss of war," Juju persuaded again. Doflamingo picked up a piece of meat, ate it in his mouth and said, "If a country abandons its own development perspective and path because of fear of war, it is a big joke. Dressrosa's previous peace was not because of strength, prosperity, but because don't you think it's ridiculous because it's useless?" But Dold seemed to want to say something else. "Don't worry." Doflamingo raised his hand to stop him, and said with a confident and sinister smile on the corner of his mouth, "I will keep winning." Seeing Doflamingo's self-confidence, Dolder could only nod in the end, and said no more. He knew that he had gone too far by saying this. After all, he was no longer a king, nor did he hold any position in Dressrosa. Perhaps it was because of his good performance before that Doflamingo had the patience to argue with himself. But if you don't know good and bad like this, it might cause disaster. But speaking of it, the reason why Dold dared to raise these issues with Doflamingo today is also because after contact and understanding during this period of time, he found that Doflamingo does not completely match the image in his original impression and imagination. Taking a sip of red wine, Doflamingo looked at Cyrus and said, "So I heard that you have recently returned to the arena and become a popular gladiator?" Hearing this, Cyrus scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "It's not good if you're always idle and have nothing to do. I'm not educated, I don't know how to do business, I only have a handful strength." Furfur, don't make yourself sound like you're worthless. But I'm also curious, you think you're like this, how did Scarlet fall in love with you? Doflamingo teased with a smile wrote. In fact, he doesn't want the relationship with the Liku clan to be so rigid all the time, so this is why he will take time out to eat and communicate with them when he is free. How should I put it? The Liku family is actually quite weird. Neither Dold nor his daughter and wife are people who are greedy for power. Perhaps if it was someone else who was robbed of the throne, he would hold a grudge in his heart. But for Dolder and others, although they were annoyed at the beginning, Doflamingo seems to be really doing a good job. After all, the economy and prosperity of Dressrosa are almost visible to the naked eye. In addition, Doflamingo they didn't kill them all. To be precise, because they surrendered quickly enough, there were no sacrifices at all. Afterwards, Doflamingo not only made a marriage contract with Violet, but also gave them the Duke treatment of the Liku family. And this treatment, in comparison, is much more chic than when his family was a royal family. Dold and others are honest and simple people who value family more than power. Doflamingo is not their family, but at least it has been made public, Violet's fiancé, if they take the risk and kill Doflamingo. So what's next for Violet? Wouldn't her life be ruined? In this way, in the end, although no one said anything clearly, the change in attitude has already made both parties aware that this conflict, everyone hopes to reconcile. When Doflamingo asked this question jokingly, Cyrus blushed in a rare way, hesitating. Scarlet said generously, "I just like him, and I think he feels very safe." "So, what about the wedding?" Doflamingo asked again. "When is the wedding?" Seeing this, Dold said on the spot, "I want them to do it sooner. After all, I think they have already made up their minds to choose each other as their partners to spend the rest of their lives together. Dodd and I am free now. There is nothing wrong with the family. If the two of them get married early, I can hold my grandson a few years earlier. He. It seemed that he was fantasizing about a better life in the future, and the old guy smiled really happily. I'm just a gladiator who was born as a criminal, and my identity is really a bit, Cyrus said, a little embarrassed. In fact, Cyrus has always been a bit inferior. He himself was not very good, and later he killed people to avenge his friends, and finally became a criminal gladiator. Fortunately, he was favored by Dald and became the captain of the palace guard. But how could he have the nerve to go to Scarlet? When Cyrus said this, Scarlet slapped him very unhappy, and the angry look provoked Cyrus to coax her again. Doflamingo smiled and shook his head, thinking they were interesting too. After dinner, Doflamingo chatted with Dolder about the Marie Joys. After all, Dolder had participated in several world summits before, so he knew something about it. As for Doflamingo, when he was Celestial Dragons, he really didn't pay much attention to these. Doflamingo did not leave the manor until it was almost dark. After leaving the manor, we can see that Monet is still wearing the secretary outfit, waiting for Doflamingo here. As for Bellamy and Gladius, Doflamingo still thought they were too annoying, so he forced them to leave. My lord. Monet greeted Doflamingo with a smile. Why are you still waiting here? Have you eaten yet? Doflamingo asked with concern. Of course, I also came back after eating and resting for a while. Monet responded with a smile. Remember it. Doflamingo raised his hand suddenly, thought for a while and said, find a suitable time, give Cyrus a noble status as a viscount, and then arrange for him to be a field captain in the picket office. Do. The picket office, in fact, means the police station inside Dressrosa, which is responsible for dealing with some messy criminal incidents in the country. Let Cyrus be the captain, catch criminals and so on, which can be regarded as the best use of everything. I see. When Doflamingo was speaking, Monet had already recorded these orders in his small notebook at an extremely fast speed. After arranging this matter, Doflamingo asked, what about Rozinante? What did he say? Do you want to go back to Marie Joy's with me after a long absence? Doflamingo was going to the World Summit on Marie Joy's, so it occurred to him to ask Rozinante if he could. But obviously, Mo Che shook his head and said, Master Rozinante said that he doesn't want to go to Shang Yi about those things. Really? That's a pity. Doflamingo shrugged. Then, he tightened the flamingo feather coat on his shoulders, moved his shoulders and neck a little, looked at the darkening sky, and grinned at the corner of his mouth. Then, let's take advantage of the night. Let's go. Dressrosa's port pier, Diamante and Mini Oro are already waiting here. They are the ones who are going to Marie Joy's with Doflamingo. As for Virgo, after Doflamingo left, Dressrosa needs a family member with sufficient status to sit in charge, and Virgo can be said to do his part. There is no need for Helding and other cadres to go, because they didn't go to Marie Joy's to start the war. In the end, Diamante and Senor were selected as cadre members to accompany Doflamingo to Dressrosa. Of course, apart from the two of them, Monet, as Doflamingo's secretary, also had to follow. And Baby 5, as a representative of the maid group, also has to go with him, who is responsible for taking care of Doflamingo's daily life. Diamante was sitting on the pier of the port, chatting with Senor that he also wanted to go to the arena to compete and become a gladiator or something idle topic. When he glanced out of the corner of his eye, he immediately stood up and said, My lord, here comes. Only one warship came, and Doflamingo took people up the ladder, and when he reached the warship, he saw the Marine Vice Admiral, Suru, who came to escort him. That's right, the Marine Vice Admiral who called Doflamingo and said he was about to arrive in Dressrosa to escort him to Marie Joy's for a meeting was none other than Suru's chief staff officer. I have to say that the choice of Marine is quite ingenious. First of all, Doflamingo's identity is rather special. He is a 7 warlords of the sea-level pirate. In this case, it would be inappropriate for Marine to just come to Vice Admiral to deal with it. We all know that Doflamingo has a perverse personality, especially not long ago. He went to Hive Island to beat Ochaku out of nowhere, and if he was in a bad mood, he killed the Vice Admiral sent by Marine on the way. What do you think we should do if this matter turns out to be like this? The World Summit can't be opened yet. Therefore, the Marine Vice Admiral who came to guard Doflamingo must be of sufficient weight and elite level. Enough weight as to let Doflamingo understand that if the Marine General moves him, Marine will definitely not let it go, and has a certain deterrent effect, and the elite level is also for in case Doflamingo really goes crazy, this Vice Admiral can have some strength to deal with it, or escape. Judging from these circumstances, the best Vice Admirals to escort Doflamingo are Sakazuki, Pelusalino, and Kuzan. To be honest, Kuzan is actually a good fit, because Doflamingo has acted with him before, and the two hit it off pretty well. But last time Marine recruited Doflamingo, this time it is guarding Doflamingo, the nature is completely different. It would be a bit of a shame to switch to any of Marine's elite vice admirals. Only Chief Staff Officer Suru, who is a Marine heavyweight, is not too young, and is a female Marine. Although she is strong, she has always been in logistics and rarely visits the front line in person. She will serve as Doflamingo's guard, and it will be better to spread the news, and basically there will not be too many negative effects. Furfurfur. Long time no see, Suru Vice Admiral. Doflamingo greeted with a smile when he saw Chief Staff Officer Suru. It's really impolite to make an old man wait so late, Doflamingo. Chief Staff Suru also greeted Doflamingo. In fact, there is nothing to talk about. After all, the two parties are not friends. Soon, Suru arranged accommodation for Doflamingo and his followers on the ship. Then, the huge marine battleship slowly left the port of Dressrosa. Although Doflamingo got up early this morning, he is a nocturnal creature after all, so the sea surface has already darkened, but Doflamingo is still half lying on the fence of the deck, with a cigarette in his mouth, looking at the sea in the distance. In fact, the sea is very scary at night, because of the lack of light source, you can hardly see anything in the distance, and you will be surrounded by endless darkness. Even Doflamingo, if you don't use the ability to use night vision, you can't see the sea surface that is hundreds of meters away and the light source of the warship cannot be affected. Can you be a little more considerate to me, an elderly person, and go to sleep well at night? The voice of Chief Staff Officer Suru came from behind Doflamingo. Doflamingo let out a puff of smoke and said with a smile, Furfur, Chief Staff Officer, would you like a cigarette to refresh yourself? HMPH. Senior Staff Officer Suru also snorted slightly when he saw that Doflamingo didn't accept the move. Then, she walked up to Doflamingo and also looked at the dark sea. Neither of the two spoke for a long time. Today's waves are fairly calm. Coupled with the huge size of the warship, the voyage at night is quite comfortable. After about a few minutes, Doflamingo's smoke burned to the end, and Chief Staff Officer Suru suddenly asked, "That day, why did you suddenly go to the Hive Island to trouble Ochaku?" Doflamingo flicked the cigarette butt into the sea with no quality, and then said, "I just happened to pass by there, and then I met that guy Mahawk, and that guy happened to be going to challenge that vice captain of Ochaku, right? Then, we fought well, that's probably what happened." After a pause, Doflamingo suddenly remembered something and said, "By the way, I happen to have a recommendation about 7 warlords of the sea. Although you are the 7 warlords of the sea yourself, I have to remind you, Doflamingo, you do not have the right to recommend candidates for the 7 warlords of the sea to our marine, do you understand?" Chief Staff Officer Suru had a very cold expression said. Doflamingo grinned. "Mahawk." As soon as he finished speaking, Chief Staff Officer Suru, who had a cold expression before, reached out and rubbed his cheek and said, "The sea breeze is really strong, it dried my skin a little, so what, since we were in Buster Call earlier, let's make an exception this time. Let's talk about this recommendation about 7 warlords of the sea." Furfur. Doflamingo couldn't help laughing as he looked at the Chief Staff Officer Suru, who was able to move freely. However, he didn't mean to tear things down, and continued, "I happened to meet him on Beehive Island before, so we chatted a little bit. I heard that when he first entered New World not long ago, he always made trouble for you Marines." "Yeah." Chief Staff Officer Suru nodded, and then said, "At first we thought that this guy had some opinions and hatred for our marine, but after reviewing the review, we found that every time he attacked, it was someone famous in our marine. Combining with his previous behavior patterns, we determined that the reason why he hunted our marine should be to challenge Gianao." "That's right." Doflamingo gave an affirmative answer, and then said, "I read the list he made earlier, and the names of Ghost Spider, Gion, and Kaji are still on his list, so in the future, he will definitely look for opportunities to hunt the 3 of them." Hearing this, Chief Staff Officer Suru felt a little toothache. "So if you make him 7 warlords of the sea, things will be a little bit more manageable, at least for you Marines," Doflamingo said. "That's all I've said, so I don't have to hide anything." Senior Staff Officer Suru adjusted his tone a little, and then said, "In fact, our marine does have the idea of absorbing Dracul Mahawk to become the 7 warlords of the sea. Because judging from all his previous behaviors, we finally believe that after Mahawk becomes 7 warlords of the sea, the degree of threat to the sea is acceptable. In fact, it is true. After Mahawk became the world's #1 swordsman, he basically became a salted fish. He didn't form a force, and he didn't go around making troubles, except for occasionally being bored and bullying at sea. Except for miscellaneous fish, he spends most of his time with the monkeys on Krajgana Island. This threat is indeed very low." After a short pause, Chief Staff Officer Suru said again, However, it has been difficult for us Marine to contact Mahawk. This guy relies on a small sampan to go to sea, and he doesn't have many friends or relationships. In a place like New World, his whereabouts can be said to be very strange. Even if Marine wants to recruit Mahawk to become 7 warlords of the sea, it has always been difficult to contact him, and there is no chance for the two parties to communicate. Not long ago, as the head of the intelligence department, Chief Staff Officer Suru had already begun to consider using some of Marine's special intelligence resources to collect and track Mahawk. But now, it seems to be turning around. Looking back, I found that Doflamingo is going to recommend Mahawk as 7 warlords of the sea. It's not a hit and miss. It's hard to get in touch. Doflamingo grinned and said with a smile, Grand Advisor, have you forgotten what I, Doflamingo, do in the dark world? Chief Staff Officer Suru froze for a moment, then raised his brows and said, Middleman. So are you planning to apply the relationship network development model in North Blue to New World? I heard that your Donquixote family and the Big Mom pirate group a comprehensive reconciliation has been made, and a certain degree of commercial and trade cooperation has been reached. Turning enemies into friends and partners has always been something you are good at. A long time ago, although Marine did not interfere much with the Dark World, in the North Blue period, before Sengoku got involved in his Doflamingo affairs, Suru's chief staff officer was the person who had the most dealings with Doflamingo in Marine. Even if I don't say, you Marines are very clear that the reason why I want the position of 7 warlords of the sea is actually to facilitate me to open up both black and white relationships, isn't it? Doflamingo smiled, then he said, not only Mahawk, if you need it, I can also recommend a big guy from the Fishmen Island. The Fishmen Island. Chief Staff Officer Suru's eyes lit up, and he was a little moved. She suddenly discovered that before this, Marine had been avoiding the 7 warlords of the sea like a tiger, and in the selection of personnel, she had always hoped to select qualified but not very harmful wastewood as candidates. But Doflamingo's words suddenly made General Staff Suru realize that 7 warlords of the sea can also be traded as a bargaining chip for cooperation. The relationship between Marine and the Fishmen Island can be said to be very ordinary, and as a member country, the relationship between the world government and the Fishmen Island can also be said to be very indifferent. But if it is possible to carry out some linkage through the location of 7 warlords of the sea, can it greatly change this situation? Among other things, pirates now have to go through the Fishmen Island if they want to enter the New World. If they can establish a good relationship with the Fishmen Island, can they make a fuss about this kind of thing? How about a big gain? Moreover, in this way, it should be possible to change the indifferent relationship between the Fishmen Island and the world government, and allow the two sides to have more topics and channels for communication. Chief Staff Officer Suru was a little moved, but she quickly figured out the calculations involved. Among other things, there is at least one reason why Doflamingo recommended people so actively, and that is to enhance his influence in the 7 warlords of the sea organization. There are a total of 7 warlords of the sea, and Mahawk can be regarded as a reservation. If you go back and discuss it, if you can also fill in one for the Fishmen Island, then count him as Doflamingo. Directly and indirectly, he has 3 for this group of 7. Have the right to speak. If he is asked to do something later, is the 7 warlords of the sea organization owned by the world government or his Doflamingo? Sanctuary Marie Joyce. In the huge port under the Red Line, it is very crowded at this time. Ships and warship escorts from all over the world gathered here. A large number of princes and nobles landed in Marie Joyce, making the bubble elevator a little overwhelmed. So, as the chief staff officer, you also want to participate in this meeting, right? Doflamingo asked casually as he stepped off the boat of Chief Staff Officer Suru. Chief of Staff Suru said calmly, Marine executives themselves have a need to participate in the World Summit, after all. Compared to most countries, our influence on the sea and the importance to the world government are stronger. Doflamingo nodded understandingly, despite the fact that Marine seemed to be of a lower status, and had to send someone to pick up the ace of the franchise country or something. But in fact, if Marine does not participate in World Summit, then World Summit really has many issues that cannot be resolved. Marine's right to speak, at least among the franchise countries, is very strong. In the original story, Fujitora represented Marine with a smile, and directly proposed the abolition of 7 warlords of the sea on World Summit, and World Summit passed directly. Although there is also the reason of 7 warlords of the sea has been suffering for a long time, but the influence of Marine on World Summit can also be seen from the side. It is also reasonable for Suru to participate in the meeting as the Chief of Staff of Marine and one of the think tanks. As soon as they arrived at the port, General Staff Suru said directly, for you, returning to Marie Joyce is like going home. You know more rules than I do, and the route must be more familiar than I do. Then I will send here. Oh. Doflamingo teased. After using me, squeezed out the value, just throw it away here. She is really a cruel woman, big counselor. What? Are you fascinated by me? Senior Staff Officer Suru rolled his eyes at Doflamingo and asked. Foo. Doflamingo smiled, then waved his hands and said, in that case, let's see you at the meeting. It has to be said that in terms of verbal disputes alone, Chief Advisor Suru is one of the few people who can fight back and forth with Doflamingo. Pongal Castle. Between the powers, the 5 elders are also gathered together at this time. Just now the reception said that Don Quixote Doflamingo has arrived. Saint Vachuli walked in from the door. Oh. Is that guy here? Moshe Shang raised his brows and said, not long ago. I heard that he teamed up with that guy named Dracul Mahawk on the Hive Island in New World and almost wiped out Ochaku? There is such a thing. Sa Tanshang nodded, and then said, only from the perspective of strength, this guy may already be able to compete with Zhonglote Linlin with a silver medal player. It's even slightly stronger. After all, both Ochaku and Charlotte Linlin lost to him. Regardless of the process, at least the result is the same. After thinking for a while, Vachuli Sheng commented. Calculation and luck are also part of strength, Peter Saint said calmly. In the end, it was a bald man, Nasi Shou Langsheng, who held a long knife and asked, then, do you want to summon him? Several 5 elders looked at each other, thinking in their hearts, should they meet Doflamingo? At present, it is obvious that the attitude of the 5 elders towards Doflamingo is actually mainly to appease and win over, especially at this stage. Doflamingo seems to be doing very well in New World. Not only has Liyue New World gained a firm foothold, but it has also gradually opened up its relationship network and business channels. His influence as the 7 warlords of the sea has obviously spread a lot in New World, which is also very beneficial to the world government. I'm worried that young people will be a little impatient. After thinking about it for a while, Peter Saint expressed his opinion. What is a little impatience? It's just that I can't hold back, I have some achievements, and I want a higher reward. It is true that the 5 elders are very optimistic about Doflamingo, but they are also a little worried. Don't ask Doflamingo, this guy said on the spot, I want to restore the status of celestial dragons or something. That's a lot of trouble. Of course, the trouble is not the matter itself. For 5 elders, the supreme authority on the surface, not to mention that Doflamingo itself has the blood of 20 kings, even if he is an ordinary person, as long as 5 elders thinks, he can able to use the power to upgrade Doflamingo to celestial dragons. But the point is, once Doflamingo becomes the celestial dragons again, then he will lose his energy. The foundations of New World will be gone, and he will start to show off his power on Marie Joyce again. What if he has done all the bad things? Of course, this is only one of the possibilities. Second, if Doflamingo wants to restore his identity as celestial dragons and join the Knights of God, how will he resolve it? Strength is enough, but loyalty and trust are not enough. Finally, Don Quixote Doflamingo is the descendant of the main line of the Don Quixote family. In other words, if his father hadn't been so stupid that he fell to heaven, in fact, the position of head of the family should almost fall into the hands of Doflamingo now up. If Claudius is helping Doflamingo, then even if Doflamingo regains his identity, it is impossible for Doflamingo to compete for the position of patriarch, but if the 5 elders make a move, Doflamingo will not have to save any face for Claudius. Maybe there will be some turmoil on Marie Joyce. The 5 elders all agree that Claudius can't fight Doflamingo, who came out of the bloody wind, so this turmoil means fear that Doflamingo will kill all the celestial dragons of the Don Quixote family in return. Erging. If the method is too cruel, it will not look good. With your style, the Don Quixote family is not the only one on Marie Joyce. What do you think of the rest of the celestial dragons family? Therefore, from the perspective of the 5 elders, it is not a problem to restore Doflamingo's celestial dragon's identity, but the question is under what circumstances and when is it appropriate to restore Doflamingo's identity. Anyway, now is not the time. So in this case, if Doflamingo is summoned, if this guy makes such a request, it will embarrass both parties. But if you don't see him, the young people might be chilled too, Vocally said with a little embarrassment. In the end, it was Ma Sheng who made the final decision. It's really interesting. As the highest authority, when will we worry about this kind of thing? It's not that everything in the world cannot function without Doflamingo. I value him, but that's all. If this guy doesn't know how to be polite, then I don't think there is any value in continuing to cultivate him. That's right. Shang Nasi Sholing supported him immediately after hearing the words. Seeing this, the other 3 also laughed and said, then see you. Soon, a herald ran out. At this time, Doflamingo was chatting happily with the royal families of the franchise countries in the social square. Doflamingo himself is a well-rounded person, and some veteran princes and nobles more or less know something special about him, and respect his noble bloodline very much. Yes, many royal families, great respect for Doflamingo's pedigree. Even some royal families felt that it was an honor for Doflamingo to speak to them. So in this social square, they really chatted happily. Especially some members of North Blue's franchise royal family, seeing Doflamingo, it is called a kindness. All of them took the initiative to come forward to say hello to Doflamingo. Naturally, Doflamingo would not neglect these old guys. After all, he also plans to use North Blue as a production base in the future to mass-produce various materials and sell them through the new route, for each country in the New World. Seriously, the Donquixote family had a report before. The above clearly lists many data differences between Grand Line and 4 Seas. Basically, the countries in the Grand Line have very powerful combat capabilities, and the countries in the New World are more prominent. The reason is that the surrounding sea environment is unstable, and the combat effectiveness is forced out. After all, if your fighting power is not enough, the country's army is too stretched, even in the battle with the pirates, you can't wait for the Marines' support. Then forget it once or twice, 3 or 4 times, the country will be finished. Therefore, the countries that can survive are all countries with strong combat effectiveness. However, there are gains and losses. It is precisely because of the environment that they have forced out their combat effectiveness, but also because of environmental reasons, their productivity generally cannot catch up with countries around the world. Relying on a relatively stable sea area environment and a safe political environment, the productivity of the countries of the 4 Seas far exceeds that of the New World countries, and many special commodities and technologies are basically in the hands of the countries of the 4 Seas. Because of this, Doflamingo is planning to use North Blue as a commodity production base, to dump a large number of commodities to New World countries through Dressrosa, the core transfer station, to earn a lot of profits. Then use these earned wealth to invest in the industry, and strive to increase the influence of the Donquixote family in all aspects of the resource industry. It must be true. Although I am the king of Dressrosa now, I have always believed that I am an orthodox North Blue person. Of course, I will give priority to taking care of our old partners. In this way, when I look back, I will explain to Toribol, must first let your Sachariki kingdom prioritize meeting the needs of the black slaves on the plantation. Doflamingo said earnestly while holding the palm of a certain royal family in North Blue. Then thank you very much, Dover. I knew that you would never forget our North Blue people. The royal family also said moved. Just when Doflamingo was in contact with many royal families around him, a herald quickly came to Doflamingo and said, His Royal Highness Don Quixote Doflamingo. The 5 elders invite you to meet us. As soon as the words fell, many royal families around took a gasp. Look, some of them have been here for several days, and they have never been summoned. As soon as Doflamingo set foot on Marie Joy's, 5 elders immediately made time to meet him. What is importance? This is the importance. It seems that in the future in the world government system, you must give Doflamingo a little more face. Deep Sea Prison Impel Down Impelton, the 6th floor Eternal Hell. The young crocodile was wearing a black and white striped prisoner uniform, sitting in the prison, holding a newspaper in his hand, and reading the news on it. World Summit. Crocodile whispered softly. Counting the time, it is also the time when the Quadrennial World Summit is held. As prisoners of Eternal Hell, not only do they not have to enjoy the fancy torture on several levels, in fact, they also have some privileges, such as Crocodile and others, who can use newspapers to pass their time. Before that, Crocodile also read about that guy Doflamingo becoming the master of Dressrosa from the old newspapers. Even the newspapers a few days ago published the big event that Doflamingo defeated Ochaku on Hive Island. Think about Doflamingo, think about yourself. Crocodile always feels a little uncomfortable. At first, when Crocodile first came in, he was a little resentful of Doflamingo. If it wasn't for this guy, he should be very cool in New World at the moment. How could it be possible to be imprisoned in Imperton? But with the passage of time, Crocodile gradually calmed down, and he also wanted to understand. In fact, this matter has nothing to do with Doflamingo's appearance. It was he who took the initiative to attack Doflamingo and set off a riot in Logue Town, which ended up like this. As weird as it sounds, Crocodile really doesn't hate Doflamingo anymore. I have to say that Crocodile is a very calm and gracious person. In the original story, in order to be able to escape from Imperton, he even teamed up with Luffy, who personally ruined his country plan for many years and sent him to Imperton. And during the Battle of the Top, he helped Malinford many times. It can be seen that Crocodile is indeed a person who can afford to let go. He can even put down the hatred with Luffy. What can he not let go with Doflamingo? After all, do the math, Doflamingo never provoked him at all. World Summit. Looked at the newspaper again, the corners of Crocodile's mouth slightly raised, with a smug smile, and said softly, It's a good opportunity. Young Crocodile has no intention of spending his life in this boring prison. From the time he entered Imperton, he has been thinking about how to get out from here. To be honest, sea stone shackles are not a problem for a ruthless person. Crocodile's sea stone shackles are hung on his wrist. He just needs to be ruthless, remove his golden hook, and use up a hand. With his ability, it is completely possible to try to escape from prison. But before, Crocodile did not do this, because he knew very well that Impelton's defense system was not just as simple as this prison island. The most powerful place is the Trinity's three-fortress system of justice. Once something happens to Impelton, the support from naval headquarters can be felt quickly, and the support from Eni's lobby is the same. So in normal times, you can't escape from prison. But it's different now. During this period, World Summit is open. Many of Marine's generals should have been scattered all over the world, escorting a large number of royal families towards Marie Joy's. At the same time, Marine's senior generals must have already prepared for Marie Joy's, because according to the usual practice, they will also participate World Summit. Moreover, a large number of franchised royal families gathered in Marie Joy's. Whether it was the CP agency or the naval headquarters, they would inevitably dispatch more forces to guard the safety of Marie Joy's. In this way, every 4 years, the moment when the defense system of the Trinity of the Three Fortresses of Justice is the weakest appears. At this time, if you choose to escape, you only need to deal with the Imperton unit. This is the opportunity Crocodile has been waiting for. But before Crocodile started to work, Shaki, who lived opposite Crocodile, suddenly sat up from the dark and wet ground. He stretched, yawned, looked at Crocodile, and asked directly, "Hey, that yellow sand boy, what day is it today? How long has Lousy been asleep?" Hearing this voice, Crocodile said a little rudely, "Shaki, don't call me around like your subordinate. Who do you think Lousy is?" Gia ha 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 ha. Don't young people nowadays know how to respect the old and love the young? Chi let out a wild laugh. But don't look at the two of them talking, it's like eating gunpowder. But in fact, because they were imprisoned here together and face to face, during this period of time, if there is nothing to do on weekdays, the two will chat just a few words to relieve boredom. So after a few words, Crocodile said directly, "Have you been asleep for 4 or 5 days? I can't remember, but today is Sea Circle calendar November 1502. So that's how it is." Shiki's eyes lit up and said, "If that's the case, it's today." "What is today?" Crocodile looked at Shiki in confusion. Why is this old thing going crazy here all of a sudden? Then, seeing that Shiki didn't pay attention to Crocodile's meaning at all, his fingers suddenly merged into a knife-like appearance, and a sharp energy burst out from Shiki's fingertips in an instant. That's right, Shiki is not only a lion fruit's ability user, but also a very powerful swordsman. In addition, Shiki's strength lies here. Even if he is a capable person and is copied to the sea stone, Shiki can still easily do this step. "What are you doing?" Crocodile looked at Shiki in surprise and asked. Shiki swiped his backhand, blood spattered everywhere. Under Crocodile's shocked gaze, he cut off his 2 feet decisively. Once both feet were broken, the sea stone shackles that originally restrained Shiki also lost their effectiveness. Shiki floated in the cage and laughed loudly. Gia ha 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 ha. Impelton wants to be imprisoned too. Me Shiki? As soon as the ability was activated, the solid prison door was blasted out instantly, and the harsh siren sounded, but it was too late. Shiki had already become a lion that broke free from the shackles. Shiki, whose legs were cut off and bleeding blood, floated in front of Crocodile's prison, looked at Crocodile and said, "So, should Lousy let you out?" Crocodile's eyes were cloudy. What the hell, he never expected that his thoughts and plans would collide with Shiki. And Shiki is really decisive. Crocodile is still thinking about where to start, so as to leave him the least sequelae. Shiki has already decisively cut off both feet. What is a werewolf? This is a werewolf. But at this time, if Crocodile asked Shiki to let him out or something, Crocodile couldn't let it go. But at this moment, Shiki still raised his hand and swung it, and the prison in front of Crocodile was thrown out. "Let's go. We've gotten along quite happily in the past 2 years. I'll take you for a ride to find the key to unlock your shackles and my 2 powers." Shiki smiled wickedly laughed. Crocodile looked at the collapsed prison, walked out with steady steps without being polite, looked at Shiki and said, "I owe you once, Shiki." The two came out of the prison carelessly like this. When they walked in the dark corridor, the other prisoners in the cage were all confused when they saw it, and they all cried and begged Shiki and Crocodile to take them too. Let them out together, and then Imperton will make a big fuss, and the possibility of everyone escaping will be greater. But obviously, Crocodile and Shiki don't bother to pay attention to them. For the two of them who are proud and arrogant, they can still get away from this Imperton even without you trashfish. But soon, when passing by a prison door, Crocodile stopped his footsteps, and he looked at the silent figure sitting in the prison. Douglas Bullet. How should I put it? Crocodile and Bullet still have some friendship. So after a moment of silence, Crocodile took the initiative to speak. Can I help you? The silent Bullet looked up at Crocodile, his expression was still calm and composed. But after a while, he shook his head and said, no need, I haven't got the answer I want, so this sea, for me, no matter where it is, as a cage. Crocodile. Look at your body, which is stronger than a brown bear. Are you the one who should say such mysterious and philosophical words? Can you stop pretending to be literary all of a sudden? I know you very well. Your kid never went to school, he was born as a boy soldier. But Crocodile still stopped the urge to complain about Bullet. Seeing that Bullet really didn't intend to leave, he nodded coldly and said, then I wish you good luck. After finishing speaking, he turned and left here. After a while, Shaki, who was waiting in front of the elevator door, saw Crocodile approaching, and urged impatiently, hurry up, hurry up. At this time, the elevator was full of blood, and there were several impertinent jailers in front of the door, and the corpses were not complete. That's right, during the short exchange between Crocodile and Bullet, Shaki had already killed all the guards on the 6th floor. When the elevator began to rise, Empelton's guards also responded quickly. At the same time, in the Holy Land Marie Joy's, Doflamingo has also been guided to the door of Five Elders' office. He looked at the room called, the Room of Power, in front of him, and felt a little emotional in his heart. What's lacking? I like to show off. It's called the Power Room, but for 5 elders, is this really the Power Room? Look at the place where I am, who really holds the supreme power. People live, is simply called, Between the Flowers. Pushing open the door between the powers, Doflamingo stepped inside. At this time, the 5 elders, who apparently possessed the supreme power of the world's government, also turned their attention to Doflamingo who walked in. Facing the gazes of the 5 big shots alone, Doflamingo didn't feel too much pressure. No one on both sides spoke for a while, making the atmosphere a bit dull. After about a few breaths, top man Vokulashung, who had a pair of thick mustaches, finally spoke first. You've grown up, Dover. His tone was a little emotional, a little nostalgic, as if full of sincerity and eagerness, like an elder whom he hadn't seen for a long time. When he opened his mouth, even the 5 elders seemed to have found a chance to speak. Sa Tanshang nodded emotionally and said, yes, in a blink of an eye, that little guy who likes to pull your beard has grown so big. Over the years, have you suffered a lot outside? Mishung also asked with concern. Nasi Shou Langshang looked at the saber hanging on Doflamingo's waist, and said, have you also embarked on the path of a swordsman? Let's have a chance to communicate. Sit down. What are you doing standing there? Peter Street greeted. Looking at the enthusiastic 5 elders, Doflamingo really wanted to complain. If the big guys really don't know how to perform such a touching plot, we can skip it, okay? There's no need to act hard, right? You are so blunt, how can I take it? In fact, whatever the 5 elders' performance was, Doflamingo couldn't believe it anyway. But at this time, if he didn't express and cooperate, wouldn't he just slap 5 elders in the face? Is this appropriate? This is not appropriate. So Doflamingo took a deep breath, took off the sunglasses on his face, and wiped his eyes with his cuff, as if wiping away tears. Sure enough, when he put down his hand, his eye sockets were slightly red. Then, taking advantage of St. Peter's invitation, Doflamingo took a few steps to the sofa opposite 5 elders and sat down. After sitting down, he twitched his shoulders a few times, as if he was suppressing his emotions that had nowhere to rest. Not to mention, Doflamingo has not said a word so far, but this performance has surpassed 5 elders too much. For a moment, the 5 elders were a little suspicious. Is this in line with our performance? Or is Doflamingo showing his true feelings? That's right, 5 elders wouldn't think that a man like Doflamingo, who has been in the sea for so many years and has already established a firm foothold in New World, would be taken down by a few of them. To put it bluntly, whether it is the performance of 5 elders just now or the cooperation of Doflamingo at this time, it is actually a kind of temptation. No one would believe it naively. Now that both sides are taking over the show, it means that the attitudes of both sides are the same, that is, the 5 elders want to appease him Doflamingo, Doflamingo is willing to accept this. After Doflamingo sat down, Saint Vachuli specially sat next to Doflamingo, patted Doflamingo on the shoulder and said, okay, the past is over. As soon as Doflamingo heard this, he understood the meaning. The past is over, which means don't mention the past. Seeing this, Doflamingo nodded lightly, and asked, I really didn't expect to see the 5 adults again. That's right, we didn't expect that either. Saint Vachuli nodded, and then said, it's really regrettable that your father fell to heaven. Everything is a choice of fate. Doflamingo shook his head, and continued, it's pretty good now. Speaking of which, I haven't thanked the 5 adults for their care. I really thank you for the matter of 7 warlords of the sea. There is nothing to thank. The same blood flows from our bodies. We were born to stand together. Dover. This point, even if you are not above Marie Joyce, it will not change in any way. Satan Shang said deeply with an expression of, we are a family. Doflamingo thought to himself, if I am still playing mud in North Blue, I don't believe that you want to treat me as family. Everything is a measure of interests. Nashao Langshang also said at this time, 7 warlords of the sea itself is an organization under the government of our world, and we can rest assured that you come in. To be honest, compared to the other bastard pirates in the sea, we trust more you. Doflamingo completely believed in this, and it would be the same if it were him. Compared with other miscellaneous pirates who came to be the 7 warlords of the sea, he, Doflamingo, the former celestial dragons with the blood of 20 kings, indeed more trustworthy. I am also very excited to be able to return to the banner of the world government again. Doflamingo said very cooperatively. The two sides chatted about some short things about their parents, and recalled Doflamingo's mischievous behavior when he was a child, which further deepened the relationship. After waiting for a while, Saint Satan suddenly asked, Dover, what made you go down the road of pirates? Doflamingo, are you short? Guess what? Isn't it because of Sengoku? But soon, Doflamingo responded, it's a long story. If you just talk about the identity of a pirate, in fact, so far, I don't think I am a pirate in the standard sense, right? 5 elders and others listened to this and nodded in approval. Doflamingo's pirate career is indeed different from most pirates. The reason why I became a pirate at first was because I was defined as a pirate by Marine. Later, when I saw Roger's execution in Logue Town, I knew. The sea would be in chaos, Doflamingo said. Speaking of Roger, the 5 elders also hated it. In my opinion, being a pirate is a very worthwhile identity to take advantage of. It was only then that I recognized myself as a pirate. My original plan was to enter New World as a pirate, like Charlotte Linlin, but after the news of 7 warlords of the sea came out, I immediately changed the relevant plan, Doflamingo said. And then? Satan-san asked again. What is your goal? What is your ambition? Doflamingo said without hesitation, I want to go back to Marie Joyce with dignity. Looking at Doflamingo's resolute eyes, 5 elders and others looked at each other. Regarding the fact that Doflamingo's goal and ambition is to return to Marie Joyce, they were not very surprised, and they also thought it was very reliable. At the end of the day, it's because Doflamingo was born to be at the top, he enjoyed everything on Marie Joyce, so after he lost it, it was so precious, so he wanted to get it back. This is very reasonable. And thinking about it further, once Doflamingo even sacrificed his own father in order to return to Marie Joyce. It fully demonstrates that this is his obsession. I have considered many ways, and I have actually done some extraordinary behaviors, all for the purpose of returning to Marie Joyce, Doflamingo said with a slightly sad look in his eyes. After a pause, he smiled, looked at the other 5 elders and said, but at that time, I was too young, and my vision of the world was really short-sighted, thinking that as long as I showed enough sincerity, it is impossible to expect such a response, but it turns out, it is impossible. Seeing this, Satan seemed to want to say something, but Doflamingo didn't give him a chance to speak at all, and continued, since that incident, I have returned to North Blue, and I feel that something happened in my heart. The world has changed, and the angle and vision of the world are different. I suddenly understood that it is ridiculous to want to go back to Marie Joyce and beg anyone. In this world, the only thing I can beg for is me own. Speaking of this, Doflamingo's eyes brought a touch of madness and paranoia, and said in a deep voice, if you want to return to Marie Joyce, you must make yourself extremely powerful and important. This is your own value, and it also represents a huge benefits. Only in this way, those bastards who wantonly abused me in front of the gate of God's house, will lower their stupid heads and respectfully invite me back. After saying this, Doflamingo paused for a moment, as if he was adjusting his emotions. After a few seconds, he smiled and said, from the 5 adults summoning me today, this road should be correct. Doflamingo thought about it, and his performance just now should be passable. He really wants to return to Marie Joyce, and he has been working hard for this goal, but his so-called return may be somewhat different from the description just now. He wants to return to Marie Joyce, and kill all the celestial dragons who humiliated him in front of the house of God. He didn't come to Marie Joyce to restore his so-called celestial dragons, descendants of creation, gods and other messy, insignificant identities. He had given up all this long before his soul was refreshed. What he wants is not these useless titles, he wants to seize the throne of the king of the world. He wants everyone in this sea to submit to his prestige. He wants to make Don Quixote great again, and become the only great one. The road is indeed correct. Saint Satan looked at Doflamingo and said softly, Instead of begging for the mercy of others, it is indeed the right road to come back with your own strength, and you are indeed walking on this road. On the way. As you said, the stronger the strength you show, the more important the value you show, the higher the possibility of returning to Marie Joyce, whether it is us or the rest of the world. Exchange, that is, the word interest. But it's not enough now, Dover. Saint Vachuli also said, you are very dazzling now, but it's not enough. We need you to show more value and stronger strength, so that we can invite you, return to Marie Joyce, let the glory of Marie Joyce shine on you again. So, what should I do? Doflamingo looked at the 5 elders and asked. After Doflamingo's inquiry fell, the scene became quiet again. Several 5 elders glanced at each other, and then Mashung spoke first. What you are doing now is what we hoped for. Whether it's the Big Mom Pirates, or Ochaku's Arkstar Pirates, no matter what your purpose is, as far as the result is concerned, it is beneficial to our world government. Satan said solemnly. You should have seen the current situation on the sea. Since Roger started the era of great pirates 2 years ago, the order on the sea surface has been collapsing. More and more pirates have flocked to the sea. We also have some. Pete Saint whispered. It makes us a little weak. Nasi Sholing Sheng answered, and then said, especially New World, since the Rocks pirate ran rampant in New World, our world government's control over New World has become weaker and weaker. Today, our strength in New World can be said to have fallen into a trough. This is indeed a fact. In the Rocks era, New World gathered a large number of famous and powerful people, such as Shaki, Whitebeard, etc. All of them were there, and all of them were young and strong, and they were at a stage of daring to fight. However, there is also a leader. It was during that period that the Rocks pirates swept across New World, rooting the ruling foundation of the world government for many years, completely shaking, and greatly weakening the control over New World. Although the Rocks pirate was finally destroyed, the main force of its pirate group was not completely wiped out. The era of chaos led by Whitebeard, Charlotte Linlin, Shaki, Kaido, Ochaku, Silver Axe and other great pirates has begun. During this period, the world is wrestling with these sea heroes in New World, which can be said to have ups and downs. Sometimes gain the upper hand, and sometimes get driven out. But as this group of people gradually grew into real big shots, the world government's control over New World was indeed becoming more and more powerless. Even Marine, known as the Sea Overlord, has been greatly restricted in its actions in New World. Until now, with the advent of the era of great pirates, more and more turbulent waves are constantly pouring into the New World. The turmoil in the first half of the Four Seas and the Grand Line forced the world government to use the power that could have been used in the New World to suppress the remaining sea areas. It is foreseeable that this situation will deteriorate more and more. That's why the 7 warlords of the sea system came into being, hoping to keep this collapsing sea under control. It won't take too long, 10 or 20 years, when the world's government will bring out its deep heritage and reinvigorate its strength. When it grows strong enough to suppress everything, just abolish it. You want to make some achievements in New World, and we also want this result. Peter Saint said, rather than letting New World fall into the hands of those ambitious people, it is better to fall into your hands. After all, no matter what is your identity, but you and we have always flowed the same blood, Dover. Hearing this, Doflamingo nodded and said, so to put it simply, in this turbulent age, Marie Joyce doesn't have enough power to suppress the New World, so I'm needed. Let me be the world's ruler, the main line of the New World, conveying the influence from the world's official government, when the matters in the rest of the sea area are resolved in the future, when Marie Joyce is free and can start to solve the problems of the New World, if then my worth enough, then, that's when I go back to Marie Joyce, right? Your value is enough, Dover, if you insist on returning to Marie Joyce as soon as possible and restoring your status as celestial dragons, with your current performance, it is completely enough. Give us a while and we'll pave the way for you to come back and be one of the hundreds of do nothing, time-wasting, worthless guys on Marie Joyce, Satan Sheng said calmly. As soon as his words fell, Nasi Sholing Sheng also said, however, if you can continue to develop in New World and create higher value for yourself, let us see more of your strength and potential, and wait when we solve the rest of the problems and start to deal with the New World, Dover. When you return to Marie Joyce, it will be glorious. I can guarantee that those who humiliated you back then will be handed over to you. You can deal with it, and the throne of the head of the Knights of God can be handed over to you, and even us. The highest position of power we represent, it is not impossible to leave it to you. After all, we are very old. Growing up, among the young people of this generation, only you are the most outstanding. Painting cakes is a must for those in high positions. Before meeting Doflamingo, the 5 elders were worried that Doflamingo, a young man, was too impatient, but after communicating with Doflamingo, they could feel that Doflamingo's ambition was not that simple. So they're not too worried that Doflamingo will be impatient and want to go back to Marie Joy's early, and be a celestial dragon who eats and dies or something. Therefore, what I was originally worried about has also become an order code. And after this price tag, it's just a picture. If you don't come back now, do more outside, cooperate more with our world government, and be more obedient, we will be happy when the time comes. When the problem of New World is solved after the question, you can stage a Return of the King. When the time comes, you can seek revenge from those guys back then, and we won't stop you. It will even give you the throne of the leader of the Knights of God. Up to this point, Doflamingo felt that these are the prices that the 5 elders can indeed trade, not just drawing cakes. It is the latter sentence, the highest position of power, which is a little redundant. Doflamingo doesn't believe the 5 elders will vacate the spot. But it doesn't matter, what he needs has never been these. The reason why he came to participate in the World Summit is actually for the 5 elders. After all, he only got Dressrosa not long ago. Do you really want him to participate in those bullshit competitions between countries in the world as the king of Dressrosa? Things, he doesn't have much interest. He knew that once he landed in Marie Joy's, there was a high probability that he would be summoned by 5 elders, because from what happened with 7 warlords of the sea before, it could be concluded that 5 elders are already paying attention to him. And he is also very clear that the 5 elders who have been in charge of the world's government for so many years are by no means stupid, they must be smart people. So he is willing to communicate with the 5 elders. Because smart people know that in this world, there is no such thing as wanting the horse to run, but also wanting the horse not to eat grass. You need me to play a role in Doflamingo in New World, so you don't give me some help and benefits, is that reasonable? The status of the celestial dragons mentioned earlier, the head of the Knights of God, etc., are all the final rewards. Doflamingo doesn't care, what he cares about is the support that should be given now. There are thousands of thoughts in my heart, but the reality is just a moment. As soon as Nishu Langshang said this, Doflamingo showed an interested look and said, I dare not covet the power of the 5 lords, but I am still very interested in the power of the Knights of God. After all, I have Don Quixote's blood on my body. The 5 elders were not surprised when they saw this, and they fully understood what Doflamingo meant. The Knights of God is a rare armed violence organization formed with celestial dragons as its core members, and is basically responsible for matters within celestial dragons. Possesses the power of judgment over the celestial dragons group. Although the Knights of God was formed by drawing elites from 19 ethnic groups, and each family has influence and power in it, for a long time, the dominance of the Knights of God has always been in the hands of the Figaland family. The current supreme commander of the Knights of the Gods is Figaland Green Old Saint, and when it comes to the Figaland family, one has to mention the Donquixote family. There are also many grievances and hatreds among the 19 celestial dragons families, and the Figaland family and the Donquixote family. Since the time when the 20 kings joined forces, the ancestors of the two sides have not been very harmonious. Later it became the celestial dragons, and they fought each other for hundreds of years. Anyway, so far, Don Quixote's family and Figaland's family still hate each other, wishing to give each other 2 big mouths when they meet, and slap each other's face fiercely. For example, in the original story, Doflamingo's eldest cousin was the one he bullied on Sabaody Archipelago. He later reformed and became a weirdo on Marie Joy's. He was caught playing mobs during the World Summit, got the handle. Then the green old sage of Figaland's family executed him directly. If it were the other celestial dragons, they would definitely not be able to be judged so easily. Behind this, there will be forces from their respective families entangled with each other, wrestling with each other, and even ceding interests. But the green old sage didn't give the Don Quixote family time to deal with it at all, and killed them directly. This is the entanglement between the two families for thousands of years. If it were the lunatics from the Don Quixote family who were in power, it would probably be the same. As long as you seize the opportunity, you will have the ancestral grave of Figaland lifted up for you. The 5 elders all showed satisfied expressions when they heard Doflamingo's words. Don't say that Doflamingo covets the power in their hands, but at least the superficial work is done well, and that's enough. In the eyes of the 5 elders, the authority of the Knights of God is enough as a bargaining chip. As for Doflamingo, if it becomes bigger and stronger in New World later, will there be any unsuitable ideas or something? In fact, the 5 elders haven't really thought about this possibility seriously, because they have ruled out this possibility subconsciously. The reason is also very simple, because in the celestial dragons, in the 5 elders' conception, they are truly supreme. Only Marie Joy's, only the identity of celestial dragons, is the end of all power and all status in the world. Then, the logic is very clear. At that time, Doflamingo will hand over everything he has in the new world to the world government, and return to Marie Joy's to become the head of the Knights of God. The world government is not exploiting him, but rewarding him. For the 5 elders, it seems that I take a yibeli and exchange it with you for a rugiamo, which makes sense. Under this kind of logical thinking, they naturally ruled out the other options. Could it be that Doflamingo is out of his mind? If he doesn't come to Marie Joy's to do his best, he insists on being a pirate king in New World and eating rugiamo? Especially, Doflamingo used to be celestial dragons, so he understands how precious this reward is. So 5 elders really didn't have any concerns about this. Seeing that Doflamingo accepted the comfort and promise, Satan said immediately, "In this case, Dover, we Marie Joys will do our best to support your development in New World and everything." Is a relatively reasonable appeal, so you can show your strength and value freely. There is such a word as 5 elders, which is actually enough. Many of Doflamingo's ostensible businesses and plans are actually inseparable from the opening of the world government. It's like providing military equipment to Marines. If the government of the world doesn't agree, no matter how cheap your weapons are, no matter how high quality they are, you won't be able to enter the Marine system. At this stage, Doflamingo's purpose of coming to Marie Joy's this time is basically the reason. 5 elders is also very satisfied with Doflamingo. Next, talk about some trivial things, to stimulate feelings, and then we can disband. After all, everyone is very busy. But just when Doflamingo was about to say goodbye, suddenly, there was a knock on the door of the power room. The 5 elders all showed some puzzled expressions. I have told you before that when meeting with Doflamingo, there is nothing particularly important, so no one will disturb them. What happened? Nashu Langshang frowned, and said, "Come in." As soon as his voice fell, the door opened, and then Sengoku, the Marine Admiral, hurried in. Just when he was about to speak, Sengoku saw the figure of Doflamingo who was sitting on the sofa, with Satan Shang holding his shoulders, looking very close. Sengoku. What's the situation? Why is Doflamingo joking with the 5 elders here? For a moment, Sengoku didn't know whether to speak or not. Seeing Sengoku's hesitant appearance, Nashu Langsheng was silent for a moment and said, "Just say anything, Dover is one of our own." This sentence covers a certain hint, that is, if there is really something particularly confidential, you Sengoku should change the subject first and fool around. In this way, everyone looks good. After all, what they said to Doflamingo on the front foot, everyone is bleeding the same blood, but they cover it up on the back foot, which is really embarrassing. As for Sengoku, he couldn't hide what happened now, and it didn't matter if Doflamingo knew about it. Therefore, he immediately put aside all his distracting thoughts, and reported immediately. Impertin had an accident, and Golden Lion Shiki and Sand Crocodile teamed up to escape from prison. 5 elders. What is the specific method? Or is it that the people in Impelton are dereliction of duty? In the past few hundred years, such absurd things have never happened. Satan Shang asked a little angrily. It wasn't dereliction of duty, and there was no mistake. It was Shiki who cut off his own feet, thus breaking free from the seastone shackles, and teamed up with Crocodile to escape from prison. With the abilities and strength of the two of them, Impelton is very difficult for the rest of the time. Our naval headquarters could provide quick support, but now. Sengoku didn't continue when he said this. But the 5 elders all understand the meaning behind this. Now, the upper echelons of Marine are all participating in the World Summit on Marie Joy's, not just their CP agencies. This moment is the weakest moment for the defense system of the Holy Trinity Fortress in Imperton. Is it irretrievable? Pete Street asked. When we received the news, Impelton has been breached, and Shiki and Crocodile are currently missing, Sengoku said in a deep voice. Vachuli said slightly annoyed. During the World Summit, this kind of scandal happened, it is really embarrassing. At this time, Doflamingo was also full of emotion in his heart. What should have happened did happen, but there were some changes. Shiki escaped from prison with Crocodile. Could these two guys get mixed up? After thinking for a while, Satan said, "Quiet the impertinent turmoil as soon as possible, and you Marines have to respond reasonably to it. But the most important thing right now is World Summit, which is absolutely important. Nothing can happen." Although it's embarrassing, it's true that 2 pirates ran out of Impelton. Compared with World Summit is indeed more important. This is related to the foundation and system of the world government. As for Shiki and Crocodile, one is Lao Bonkai with a broken leg, and the other is just a brat. If you can catch them once, why can't you have a second time? Soon, Sengoku reported the relevant matters, discussed the situation with 5 elders, and left. But before he went out, he still looked at Doflamingo with complicated eyes. Previously, Sengoku probably never imagined that one day he would stand up and report to Doflamingo about the work of Marine. This shit is outrageous. After Sengoku left, Nashu Langshang looked at Doflamingo and said, "Dover, what do you think about this matter?" Except for Impelton's prestige and our Marie Joyce's face, it's not a big problem, Doflamingo said calmly. After a slight pause, he continued, My lords, please don't worry, whether it's Shiki or Crocodile, they're nothing more than the first-timers. As long as they appear in New World, I will immediately action. When the time comes, I will send the heads of the two of them to Marie Joyce as a gift. Although Doflamingo feels a little arrogant when he says this, Crocodile is fine, but Yuki is not a character who can be underestimated casually. But how to put it? Doflamingo expressed his position here, and it was so straightforward, which really made the five elders feel comfortable. What is one of us? If something like this happens to him, he is actually one of his own. It's just that five elders didn't know it, but Doflamingo knew very well that the current fleet forces under Shiki's command had been disbanded as early as the 2 years in prison, that is, the ghost place of Melview. Except for him, it is very difficult for other people to go up, and it is not of much value, so his base camp is still there, otherwise it would have been demolished long ago. After Shiki escaped from Imperton, he did not quickly regroup and pull out a new team like he did after the defeat in the Advor naval battle. Instead, I had a drink with Whitebeard, and then I went to study his big plan. Well, it is really big, and the success is no less than self-developed. It can be said to a certain extent. Beyond the mighty emperor of ancient weapon Hayu, Poseidon. Anyway, it was like this, it can be said that he disappeared in a daze for nearly 20 years, and never showed his face on the sea again. So what Doflamingo said, Shiki will take action as long as he dares to show up in New World, is equivalent to nonsense. Of course, if Shiki really changes his plan and wants to regain his strength, Doflamingo will indeed not stand idly by. The New World is so big. Let alone Doflamingo, but any big boss with some ambitions does not want Shiki to be like this. The bastards re-emerged. As for Crocodile, Doflamingo doesn't put him on his own level anymore. If this guy followed the original trajectory, messed around, was quickly recruited by Marine, and then went to Alabasta to cause trouble, then Doflamingo wouldn't bother to care about him. But if he comes to New World to make trouble for himself, Doflamingo won't let him down. It's not impossible to give Marie Joyce a head. Anyway, he has done it since he was 1,000 years old. Without him, it's just familiarity. In short, there is no psychological pressure at all for Doflamingo's speech here. On the contrary, it is exciting for the five elders, and they have more trust in Doflamingo. In that case, we'll wait for you to show, Dover. Saw said with a frank smile and patted Doflamingo on the shoulder. After finishing speaking, the five elders and the others secretly exchanged glances, and after a while, Sa Tansheng said, Speaking of which, your family was the main branch of the Donquixote family. Right. Yes, it was because of Grandpa's death that Father let go of his last concern and prepared to lead our family away from Marie Joyce, Doflamingo said. Doflamingo's grandfather is the owner of the serious Donquixote family. Normally speaking, if this continues, his father with cerebral palsy should be one of the 19 owners of this generation of celestial dragons. In the future, he, Doflamingo, will also it is logical to become the head of the next generation of Quixote family. To a certain extent, this is how he got the title of Young Master. However, it was obvious that his father had become the head of the family for 7 days, without doing anything serious. He took them to go down to earth, together. Thinking about now, Doflamingo is a little annoyed. Then, Sa Tansheng hesitated and said, Then do you know much about the blank 100 years and some mysteries passed down from generation to generation on Marie Joyce? Hearing this, Doflamingo was silent for a moment, and then said with a smile, When I left here, I was only 8 years old. His words can be regarded as the surface of the side, and he doesn't know much. But the enigmatic silence before that seems to be another hint. 5 elders have also felt Doflamingo's cunning, which means, if you think I know, then I know, if you think I shouldn't know, I don't have to know. There are some things that 5 elders didn't intend to say to Doflamingo, but Doflamingo's performance just now is relatively good, which has deepened the trust between the two parties. Therefore, after thinking for a while, Saint Satan still said, You also always know that our Marie Joyce is forbidden to study the blank 100-year history, right? Yes, because this blank 100-year history is recorded in the historical texts scattered all over the world in the form of ancient characters, and coincidentally, these historical texts may contain information that is enough to convey the legend. The ancient weapon that destroyed the world awakens the power, so once the history is studied, it is very likely to cause turmoil that endangers the world, Doflamingo said. These are things on the surface, things that have been written into the law, and it doesn't matter what Doflamingo said. That's right. Sa Tansheng nodded in satisfaction, and continued, that in recent years, we have discovered that there is a group of mysterious scholars in the sea, who seem to be looking for and researching this thing that should have been buried under the dust of history. Danger. Doflamingo was a little surprised. What does this mean? Your contacts and relationships, whether in North Blue, New World or Dark World, are excellent, so you should receive a lot of information on weekdays. We need you to pay attention to this matter, if possible, find them, Sa Tanshang said in a deep voice. Not long after, Doflamingo left from the Room of Power, and walked out of Pongal Castle under the guidance of the waiter. Not long after Doflamingo left, another figure walked up to the door of the power room, knocked lightly on the door, and walked in respectfully after getting a response. It's Spandine. The 5 elders were sitting on the sofa, looking at Spandine who came in, and then Saint Vachuli said, "How is the investigation about the scholars?" "Haven't caught them alive yet, but caught them by the tail twice at West Blue," Spandine responded respectfully. "West Blue?" Satan San's eyes sank and said, "Is it related to Ohara?" "We speculate. It's very possible. After all, if you want to learn and master ancient characters, you need a very large amount of knowledge and a complete system. This is something that is difficult for ordinary small scholar organizations to do, and Ohara has all the tree of knowledge, and has a system of scholars inherited for thousands of years. The knowledge reserve is also very large." Spandine Road. After the 5 elders pondered for a while, Saint Satan said again, "Ohara's status is extraordinary, and he has a great influence in the cultural world. There is no real evidence. Even we can't go too far. Not to mention, this is just suspicion. Don't look at the small broken island of Ohara, which is full of helpless scholars, which seems to be very ordinary. But in fact, Ohara has a great influence, especially in the cultural circles. If there is not enough evidence and convincing statements, Ohara will be killed in this way. That will also have a great impact on the reputation of the world government. However, you can follow this to investigate. Once you really find out something, no matter whether it is Ohara or any other group, you don't need to show any sympathy," Shang Shang said in a deep voice. "It can even be said that because it is Ohara, and because of Ohara's terrifying influence, once Ohara is really found out, the world's government must use thunderous means to suppress these powerful influences, and at the same time dare to provoke the scholar organization of the world government as completely destroyed. The reason is very simple, it is to stand up. Tell the world that even Ohara, the holy land of archaeology, once you touch taboos, you will not be forgiven. For the rest, you can judge for yourself." "Yes." Spandane replied quickly. After calming down the atmosphere a bit, Satanshung said again, "We have also settled with Doflamingo about this matter, and you can seek his help if necessary." "Master Doflamingo?" Spandane was slightly surprised, and then said, "I understand. From now on, Doflamingo can be regarded as someone we can trust, but trust is trust, and the means of execution are means. Unconditional and unsupervised trust will only lead to disasters in the end," Peter Saint said softly. Spandane frowned, hesitated for a moment and then asked, "What do the 5 adults mean?" "Think of a way, put an eye around him, don't need to do any guidance, just look at it," Saint Vouchery ordered. Then Spandane nodded, and after thinking for a while, he said, "The Donquixote family has a talent promotion system to attract new blood. At present, Master Doflamingo came to Marie Joyce's side, and the 2 new faces who followed him were not long ago recruited. I happen to have suitable candidates in my hands, and I can try to enter the Donquixote family in this way. It is normal for Doflamingo to gain attention quickly since he boarded Marie Joyce, and the new faces, mentioned by Spandane, are undoubtedly the maid baby -5 and Secretary Mo who came with Doflamingo this time Chennai. Spandane does have some seedlings in his hands, and he can arrange to do this, and the most suitable candidate among them, judging from the new faces around Doflamingo, Spandane feels that it is he who graduated from the CP training camp, the little girl Khalifa. Khalifa's father was originally a member of the CP organization, so Khalifa was trained by the CP organization since he was a child, so loyalty has been established. You can arrange these things yourself. We only have one requirement, and that is absolute safety, Saint Satan ordered. That is to say, it cannot be known by Doflamingo, otherwise, everyone will lose face. Spandane nodded, accepting the difference. For the CP agency that wanders in the dark all year round, this is not a difficult task. At the same time, after Doflamingo left Pongal Castle, he didn't go to the social square to build relationships with those princes and nobles. He went straight back to the room arranged by Marie Joyce, ready to take a rest. At the same time, he also had some things to think about, and to sort out his thoughts. As soon as they entered the room, Monet, Baby 5, Diamante and Senor quickly dispersed and began to carefully check everything in the room, even a trash can. It is also necessary to study it over and over again. Doflamingo didn't bother him, instead he sat on the deck chair and took a rest. 10 minutes later, Monet and the others came to Doflamingo, and Diamante said, "My lord, there is nothing wrong with the room. Do you need to open the Wukong shield?" "No need. I don't want to contact anyone who shouldn't be here." Doflamingo smiled and waved his hands, and then said, "You should rest if you should." Diamante and Senor nodded upon seeing this, and the two left very smoothly. This should be the first time they can visit Marie Joy's in depth and above board, and they are still very interested in this holy place. Monet walked behind Doflamingo winkingly, put his slender hands on Doflamingo's shoulders, and kneaded gently. Not to mention Baby 5, she immediately assumed the duties of a maid, making tea and preparing pastries for Doflamingo. Doflamingo enjoyed Monet's massage, eyes slightly closed, recalling the conversation with the 5 elders before. In the original story, O'Hara should have been destroyed by now. After all, when Shiki escaped from prison, Nico Robin was already wanted. But now, the situation is obviously deviated. Doflamingo thinks that this should be related to him. Since he borrowed O'Hara's power and found the vampire fruit, Albia's originally planned itinerary has undergone great changes. Even she was almost abducted by Katakuri in Alabasta. This has also led to the current situation where the government of the world still failed to find out their whereabouts, thus killing O'Hara. Doflamingo sorted out the current situation carefully in his mind. Can O'Hara be kept? Where is the interest and value in keeping it? What are the risks? Of course there are benefits and values. For example, you can use O'Hara's knowledge to explore what the blank 100-year history is, so as to grasp some black materials that are going on in the world. But Doflamingo thinks about it carefully, and these are of little use to him. Doflamingo always feels that through the so-called history, he can grasp the black information of the world's government, thereby denying the legal rationality of the world's government, setting off a frenzy of public opinion, and shaking the world. The foundation of the government. These may be useful. But the place where you should really focus is on your own strength. Otherwise, all of them are pioneers for the king, adopted. There are some more. O'Hara's tree of omniscience, where the knowledge and data records are very powerful. Later, Dr. Vegapunk specially studied these heritages of O'Hara. In the end, he mastered a very powerful force from ancient technology. Compared with the black material of the world government, Doflamingo thinks this thing should be more valuable. But that's all. Compared with the risks behind this value, Doflamingo thinks it's not worth it. In the end, after weighing the interests, it is concluded that O'Hara is not worth the risk of falling out with the world government to save. And Doflamingo always believes that although the world government has not yet found out the real culprit, as time goes by, O'Hara will play himself to death sooner or later. Getting involved in this matter, intending to protect O'Hara, is very likely to drag himself into the water and cause a commotion. But a follow-up to O'Hara's spark aka Nico Robin would be valuable. First, after the destruction of O'Hara, Nico Robin, as the only scholar who can interpret ancient texts, has its own value, needless to say, and compared to the risk of preserving O'Hara, preserving Nico Robin can be regarded as risk-free. In the future, when this knowledge may be useful, whether it is for trading or doing other things. Second, if the direction of subsequent events can be reversed by fate and Nico Robin can still have a bond with Saul, then there is a high probability that she will be entangled with Kuzan. Doflamingo himself was very interested in Kuzan, and Saul later went to Elbaf. The value of this network is also worth considering. Third, after the O'Hara incident, there will be contact with Vegapunk and Drago, which is also an opportunity. The last point is a big beauty who is destined to be very beautiful and capable in the future. She has been raised and cultivated by her side since she was a child. It is a beautiful thing to think about. Nicole Albia. Doflamingo opened his eyes and whispered the name softly. Everything still has to come from her. My lord, Monet's crisp voice sounded from behind Doflamingo's ear. What's wrong? Doflamingo asked with a smile. Clearly enjoying my massage, but calling other women's names, this is not a gentleman's behavior. Monet said coquettishly. Foo-fur-fur-fur, I'm sorry, it's my fault. Doflamingo smiled. Holy Land Marie Joy's, Pongal Castle World Summit Council Hall. 50 kings of allied countries, representatives of some autonomous islands, naval headquarters, and senior officials of the world government are holding this top-level meeting every 4 years. Judging from the topics discussed, the meeting here did, to a great extent, determine certain directions and trends of the sea for at least the next 4 years. At first, Doflamingo really didn't pay much attention to this meeting, and always felt that World Summit was a bit of a theory. However, when the meeting began to discuss the transaction quotas of certain commodities and the development of these issues by countries for their own trade development, Doflamingo immediately paid attention to them. Information. At the World Summit, when countries discuss and formulate some plans for cooperation and trade between the world government and countries in the next 4 years, the information revealed is the 10th hand wealth. After mastering this, and then deploying Dressrosa's trade direction and commodity types based on this information, the trade volume can be greatly increased. Not only that, but you can also get some inclinations about smuggled goods from the goods embargoed by various countries. For example, Alabasta, this year will be able to carry out artificial rainfall, dancing powder, for products that are embargoed and prohibited in Alabasta's own country. So on the bright side, in the open caravan trade of the world's official government and all the member countries, as long as the fleet is going to Alabasta, they can't sell this thing, and they can't even transport it. This means that dancing powder will become an extremely scarce commodity in the Alabasta market. In this case, as long as you dare to take risks and smuggle dancing fans from the black market into Alabasta, you will definitely make a lot of money. At this time, Doflamingo quickly recorded the information of Alabasta banned dancing fans in his notebook. Looking carefully, not only Alabasta, but Doflamingo's notebook has already recorded a lot of densely. They are all items that are embargoed by various countries. Doflamingo has already made up his mind, and he will let Donquixote family deliver to these places. It's not in vain, it's not in vain, Doflamingo muttered happily. Soon, it was the turn of some representatives of the self-governing island to speak. A man with a ship model on the table raised his hand and said, "Let me introduce myself. I am the mayor of Seven Waters, Lenka, and I am honored to be able to participate in this World Summit. I want to say, since the beginning of the era of great pirates, the state of our city of Seven Waters has been deteriorating. A large number of pirates have entrenched here, seriously disrupting the development of shipbuilding and tourism in the city of Seven Waters. 14 shipyards have closed down, including 2 giant shipyards." Next, the mayor of the city of Seven Waters began to complain, and finally lost control of his emotions. He patted the table and asked the representative of Marine, whether Marine can protect the safety of the city of Seven Waters. Self-governing islands like the capital of Seven Waters and O'Hara, which cannot be counted as franchise countries, are also included under the banner of the world government, but they do not need to pay a high amount of money from the sky. On the one hand, they couldn't afford it at all, and on the other hand, they also promoted the system of the world's official government from other angles. Like O'Hara, it's the things in the cultural world. Don't look at O'Hara's research on historical texts behind his back, and he can't get past the world's government. In fact, on the bright side, O'Hara's scholar organization will also speak for the world's government. Carry out some public opinion propaganda in the cultural circles or something. As for the capital of Seven Waters, needless to say, the role of Marine's shipbuilding contractor is very important. So after the mayor of the capital of Seven Waters questioned Marine, Marine's representative quickly spoke. A large group of people came to Marine at the meeting, including Marshal Kong, Admiral Sengoku, Chief Staff Suru, Vice Admiral Garp. And the one who spoke was Chief Staff Officer Suru, and there was a lot of nonsense after that, that is, Marine has tried its best to wipe out the pirates in the waters of the capital of Seven Waters, but it is impossible for Marine to deal with the current situation in the sea. Concentrate all military forces near the capital of Seven Waters or something. Sure enough, just after Marine said this, the representative of Spring Queen Island, who is not too far from the capital of Seven Waters, quickly supported Marine's remarks. Specifically, the capital of the Seven Waters has already encroached on the resources of several surrounding marine bases, causing these marine bases to basically put the main defense area on the capital of the Seven Waters, and their Queen of Spring Island was therefore ignored and received a lot of attention. Loss or something. And then countries began to quarrel, the so-called revenge of revenge, resentment of resentment. People like Doflamingo, who have no grudges or grievances, just sit on the sidelines and watch the show cheerfully. Judging from the current calm expressions of the gang of Marines and the officials of the world government, this kind of messy quarrel seems to be a standard feature of World Summit. It seems that as long as you don't stand up and hit someone, you can greet the other party's ancestors for 18 generations. For example, the Kingdom of Flowers of West Blue is currently competing with the Kingdom of Alusha, which is also West Blue. Doflamingo inquired from some of the royal families around him, only to know that the Kingdom of Flowers and the Kingdom of Alusha have been fighting for several years in a national war to compete for the title of the strongest country in West Blue. That's right, even though they are all affiliated countries of the world government, everyone is in the same camp when facing enemies and opponents outside the world government system. But there are more than 170 in nearly 200 countries, not all of them are of one mind. It is a trivial matter for the two sides to fight each other, and it is normal to conquer each other. It is said that there are at least 60 countries in the system, which are currently in a state of hostility. Doflamingo was very interested in this, and quickly recorded the news in a small notebook. Countries like this that are breaking out of national-level wars are all big customers of his Donquixote family arms business. Before, Doflamingo's influence was in North Blue, so he could only spread the ammunition business in North Blue as much as possible. If he wanted to go to a place like West Blue, just like when he wanted to visit the Capone family when he went to O'Hara, he needed local snakes to help him build a bridge. But it is different now. He is now a member of the franchise country under the world government, and he can completely use the world government as a platform to communicate with various sea areas. There is no need to deal with complicated relationships with local snakes at all, just airborne and it's over. This is one of the reasons why Doflamingo must join 7 warlords of the sea. That is, even if he does not become the king of Dressrosa, the identity of 7 warlords of the sea also belongs to the world government, and he can also use this platform. While Doflamingo was recording these intelligence messages, suddenly, New World's queen of the Aegis Kingdom, Miliker, slammed the table and said, "Shut up, you idiots who were born in paradise. What are you talking about now? The area where the sea situation is the worst, is there any place that is more sad than our new world?" Queen Miliker. Looks like she is in her 50s, right? But she is different from the stupid temperament of the general royal family. She looks very wise and capable. Someone from the royal family of New World has started here, so many countries that joined the New World began to complain. What is the purpose of paying so much heavenly gold every year? Isn't it for the security of the country? But now, our country's port has not seen a single ship from Marine for 7 months. That's right, last year, our Coromina kingdom was invaded by pirates 12 times. Basically once a month. If this continues, I think it will be gold in the sky. Great. If you can't pay, you will die even worse. A little king family of East Blue taunted. Bastard. What are you talking about? Do you want to declare war? The king of New World was also grumpy and cursed on the spot. HMPH. In the New World, heavenly gold is not the only option. Another bad-tempered old king snorted coldly. To be honest, Doflamingo can see now that all the royal families from New World seem to be very tough. This should also be caused by the environment, like Liku Dold-e, although he made Dressrosa a disaster, but he himself was able to participate in the arena for more than 10 years without being beaten to death. There is also the guy who knows the king's fist. Although it is a bit exaggerated to claim that he can kill the 4 emperors with one punch, that punch is indeed very strong. These are the royal families of the New World. Compared with those little brothers from all over the world, among other things, their personal strength is absolutely crushing. Perhaps it is precisely because they all grew up in war and are used to war, and because they also have a certain degree of force, they are all very irritable. After the irritable old king finished speaking, the venue fell silent instantly. The old king glanced around the crowd with gloomy eyes, but did not continue to say anything out of the ordinary. He said, "In New World, there is not only such an option as heavenly gold, but the truth is, if you really can't get along, you can also choose to hold high the banner of the pirate boss. In New World, there are many countries that used to be members of the franchise countries. Due to various reasons, they could not afford to pay the sky gold and were kicked out. Later, in order to ensure the safety of the country, they chose to raise the pirate flag. Among them, the Whitebeard pirates have the most flags. So theoretically speaking, the Whitebeard pirates have the most sites in New World. However, these sites are all superficial, without real cultivation, otherwise the strength of the Whitebeard pirates will become extremely terrifying of. The venue was quiet for a while, and many people heard the sound of saw writing. Everyone followed the sound and saw that Doflamingo was writing furiously. Seemingly aware that something was wrong with the surrounding situation, Doflamingo raised his head and looked at the many royal families in a little confusion, asked, "What's the matter? Is there anything I need to say?" At this moment, Queen Miliker suddenly said, "Your Majesty, Doflamingo is the 7 warlords of the sea, and is famous in the New World. Would you like to lend me the flag of the Donquixote family?" As soon as Queen Miliker said this, Marine's Sengoku Admiral said angrily on the spot, "This is against the rules. World Summit is where the rules are made." The irascible old king immediately yelled at Sengoku. "What the hell, you Marines can't control us now, and you won't allow us to save ourselves." Queen Miliker glanced at Marine's representatives, and then said calmly, "As far as I know, His Majesty Doflamingo has lent the flag of the Donquixote family to the Fishmen Island, right?" This meeting, the Fishmen Island did not come. It can be said that the Fishmen Island basically never participated in the World Summit. The gap between the government is very large. This is also the reason why Chief Staff Officer Suru heard that Doflamingo was willing to recommend a boss from the Fishmen Island as 7 warlords of the sea. Contradiction. Cough. Doflamingo cleared his throat, and then said slowly, "The thing about the Fishmen Island is true, because the geographical location of the Fishmen Island is extremely special, where pirates enter and exit New Zealand. The only way for the world, so it is also seriously affected by the era of great pirates, and our Donquixote family and Dressrosa have a very important trade agreement with the Fishmen Island." Doflamingo started talking at this World Summit. The rest of the franchise royal families don't have much sense of this scene, but the representatives of Marine, looking at the pirate Doflamingo, talking about the threat of the era of great pirates, here, always feel very funny. What's wrong with this world? What's wrong with this world? Is there still justice? To sum up, the reason why our Don Quixote family lent the flag to the Fishmen Island is because the Fishmen Island itself is our important partner. This behavior is to protect trade. Doflamingo concluded. Our Kingdom of Aegis is also very willing to sign a comprehensive trade partnership agreement with Dressrosa. Queen Milliker said decisively immediately. Me too. The old King of New World said immediately. Since it happens to be at the World Summit, why not formalize this matter and solve it through legislation? All kingdoms willing to sign relevant agreements with the Don Quixote family and Dressrosa can enjoy the trade protection from the Dressrosa and the flag protection from the Don Quixote family. How about it? Queen Milliker suggested again. Second. The irascible old king quickly responded like singing a double reed. And as soon as he finished speaking, it seemed as if he had made an appointment in advance, and several New World royal families quickly raised their hands in agreement. In fact, it was indeed an agreement. The royal families of the New World had discussed related issues before the opening of the World Summit. Growing, as long as you are not blind, you can see that Marine's strategic deployment of New World is shrinking. The power that should have been devoted to the New World is currently being used to suppress more and more pirates in the first half of the Four Seas and the Grand Line. Of course, it can be seen that the world government does not intend to completely abandon the New World. It can be seen from the fact that the 7 warlords of the sea system and Doflamingo became the king of Dressrosa openly and was invited to participate in this World Summit. The world government intends to use Doflamingo as the core to establish a new system of influence on New World. Then their proposal to seek shelter under the flag of the Don Quixote family is actually going in the right direction, and it fits with the idea of the world government to a certain extent. Don't talk about trade agreements, even if they pay protection fees, they will accept it. In fact, there will be protection fees. They also have some understanding of Dressrosa. Officially, I heard that Dressrosa is now formulating a brand new tax, called the blood tax, which seems to be specially for them. Country of asylum. It can also be seen from this that Don Quixote Doflamingo, the monarch of Dressrosa, really intends to expand his influence and territory in New World. This wave, everyone will not suffer. The royal families of the New World immediately raised their hands in favor, and one after another, some countries in the first half of the Grand Line also considered this situation, although they have not yet reached this point, and the situation has not reached their impatience. At the point of running out of food, Marine's deployment of military forces in the first half of the Grand Line is also very strong. But what if? What if the situation at sea really becomes untenable later on? You cannot join first, but you need to agree first. In this way, everyone can leave a way out, right? Therefore, soon, some of the royal families in the first half of the Grand Line raised their hands in favor of this proposal. There are also some scattered small countries all over the world. They have nothing to do, and they voted for it. However, after this wave passed, the situation basically calmed down. Sengoku quickly counted the people and heaved a sigh of relief. The number of votes in favor is only 19. Representatives from autonomous islands and others are not eligible to vote. In other words, including their marine, the number of votes in favor must reach at least 26 in order to successfully pass the proposal and proceed to the next step. Detailed discussion and formal legislation. In this situation, it should be impossible to pass. As for Queen Milliker and the others, seeing this situation, they were also a little annoyed. They finally came up with this proposal, but did the votes turn out to be so weak? Doflamingo's eyes swept across the many royal families present. Seeing Sengoku's relieved look, he smiled and coughed his throat lightly. This cough seemed like a signal. With a swish, the royal families of the North Blue countries who had not moved at all raised their hands one by one. In an instant, 27 votes were reached. Sengoku. He looked at the royal families of the North Blue countries in shock, and then looked at Doflamingo. This time, he clearly felt the strength and influence of Doflamingo's connections. Doflamingo, who participated in the World Summit for the first time, was able to influence the voting of the World Summit to a certain extent. Just when Sengoku was shocked, an official from the world government asked, "So, is there anyone else who wants to vote for it?" The people present did not respond, and then the official continued, 27 votes were in favor. According to the rules of the World Summit, the proposal from Queen Milliker of the Kingdom of Aegis was officially adopted. After that, the legal department of the world government will make appropriate adjustments and determine the relevant laws according to the situation and conditions discussed in the follow-up meeting. Why is World Summit considered the top conference? Why is Shiki and Crocodile's jailbreak irrelevant to the importance of World Summit for 5 elders at all? The reason is that the World Summit is the foundation of the legal rationality of the system of the world's official governments. Any proposals passed in this quadrennial meeting cannot be changed for at least 4 years. No right to change, and neither can 5 elders. If they want to change, they can only make dirty tricks behind their backs. Secondly, World Summit has the highest legislative power in the world government. Only the legal principles confirmed by World Summit will be officially entered into the Dragon Code of the world government, and become the general law of Yinhai in a broad sense. Now, in Dressrosa, the legislation of the blood tax will be passed, and the world government will pass the proposed legislation again. It can be said that on a legal level, Doflamingo will collect protection fees in New World, expand its territory, and carry forward the banner of the Donquixote family in the future, all of which are impeccable. As long as they are legally protected, there is nothing to say when Marine comes. Seeing this situation, Doflamingo stood up and said very humbly, "Thanks to everyone who thinks highly of me, Doflamingo. Since the meeting passed this proposal, we at Donquixote family will do our best to protect our partners in the future of." As soon as his words fell, warm applause erupted from the meeting room. After the matter here fell, everyone began to discuss the rest of the matter again. Doflamingo didn't show any limelight anymore. Just like the beginning, he happily became a melon-eating crowd. The World Summit process will take several days, and it is impossible to get everything done in one day. After several hours of meetings, the royal families of all countries exhausted themselves. In the afternoon, the meeting will be adjourned and will continue tomorrow. After the meeting was over, Doflamingo walked in the corridor of Pongal Castle and caught up with the marine bosses in front of him. Fufurfur, the chief staff officer, Doflamingo greeted. General Staff Suru stopped walking when he heard this, and Sengoku and others did the same, looking back at Doflamingo. As I said before, about the recommendation of 7 warlords of the sea, Doflamingo started the conversation, and then talked about the Fishmen Island. I don't know if you have any opinions on the Fishmen Island. On the Fishmen Island, there is a place called Murloc Street. There are about 100,000 Murloc men in it. They basically all obey the same person, that is, the boss of Murloc Street, Fisher Tiger, was an adventurer before. If you find it appropriate after investigation, I can also cooperate with our Navy Army to create momentum for him. Doflamingo laughed. He said. We will consider it and contact you after the investigation, Senior Staff Officer Suru said gently. Doflamingo waved his hand and said, "It's okay, we are all under the government of the world, you don't have to be polite, and New World, you can rest assured that I will replace your marine duties and protect those countries." Seeing Doflamingo's deliberately provocative appearance, Sengoku was very annoyed, but at this moment he had nothing to do with Doflamingo. After watching everyone in Marine leave here in a very awkward way, Doflamingo lit a cigarette, exhaled lightly and said, "The second phase of the plan. We can start preparations." Doflamingo's development plan for Donquixote family in New World is divided into several stages. The first stage is to capture Dressrosa, and use Dressrosa as the base camp to expand its influence. When the expansion of influence reaches a suitable standard, that is, now, when some countries in the New World begin to actively seek asylum from the Donquixote family, the second phase of the plan can be launched. The second phase of Doflamingo's plan is to form a coalition of sea or escort forces from all countries in the New World. The purpose of this stage is to fundamentally replace Marine's influence in New World, and create a large-scale, powerful army that has been honed through Iron and Blood Wars in New World. In the next few days, World Summit opened as usual, and Doflamingo was like a bastard, eating melons and watching the show inside. Then the meeting was adjourned in the afternoon, and basically he would participate in the gatherings of some New World royal families to discuss related cooperation matters. However, most of these discussions are superficial. For the specific situation, we have to wait until we go back, and the ministers, think tanks, etc. of each family will discuss with each other and come to a conclusion that everyone can accept. Therefore, these private gatherings can be regarded as mutual understanding between the royal family, enhancing feelings or something. Doflamingo, as the future suzerain, is naturally the object of everyone's curry favor. Many royal families have hinted to him in private that they have a beautiful younger sister, daughter, etc., and hope to marry the princess to Dressrosa and get married. That's right, marriage is basically the first choice for all nobles to enhance their relationship. Doflamingo does not refuse to come, just like the marriage with the Liku family, there is no emotion at all, it is just the bondage of interests, that's all. He also needs such a series of marriage relationships and bondage of interests, firmly to the royal families of Xinshi Kong. As the king of Dressrosa, a legally recognized nobleman, it is reasonable for him to regard his marital status as a part of the exchange of interests. The World Summit, which was held for 7 consecutive days, finally came to an end. In the end, 5 elders and others appeared as the grand finale, interacted cordially with the royal families of various countries, learned about many problems, and promised to consider how to solve these problems. In the end, the meeting was basically over, and everyone was not in a hurry to leave. The Holy Land Marie Joyes is a very sacred place in the hearts of nobles from all over the world. If you can expand your contacts and network here, it will benefit the interests of the country and the family. It will also be a great gain. So the next few days were considered a carnival for the nobles. The residents of the gods, the residents of the celestial dragons on Marie Joyes, except for the celestial dragons and their servants, the rest are not eligible to enter. At this time, in the residence of the gods, in the huge palace complex of the Topman family, many celestial dragons from various families gathered here. The Topman family has a high status among the celestial dragons on Marie Joyes, because the patriarch of their family is Saint Topman Vokuli, who is currently serving as 5 elders. Of course, the 5 elders will definitely not participate in this celestial dragons gathering, it's too cheap. Moreover, although the World Summit has ended, the follow-up world government will usher in heavy work to implement a series of proposals on the World Summit. 5 elders are naturally very busy. But in today's celestial dragons gathering, a different guy mixed in. He is completely different from the standard, cerebral palsy dress of the rest of the celestial dragons. He doesn't have pure white clothes, and he doesn't have weird bubble hair. Cover. That's right. Doflamingo is also participating in the party this time. Many years ago, Doflamingo couldn't even enter the gate of the god's house and was driven away. Now he came to Marie Joyes. After the World Summit ended, he was invited by the Topman family to participate in this party. The reason why the Topman family invited Doflamingo to participate is because they know some inside information, such as the importance that the 5 elders place on Doflamingo, and the vast future that Doflamingo holds. According to the news they got, even if Doflamingo was to fail right now, he was promised by the 5 elders that he could restore his status as a dragon opener. And once Doflamingo regains his celestial dragon status, with his blood and wrists, he will become the head of the Donquixote family, which is almost a certainty. This is one, and second, if Doflamingo performs better in the future, when he returns to Marie Joyes in the future, he will most likely become the boss of the Knights of God. This status is even stronger than that of the patriarch of the Donquixote family. After all, there are 19 patriarchs in Marie Joyes, but there is only one commander of the Knights of God, and he has the right to judge celestial dragons. This gold content, no need to compare. So for the purpose of wooing the relationship, the Topman clan invited Doflamingo to participate in this celestial dragons gathering. And they were very considerate, and excluded all the celestial dragons who had a festival with Doflamingo from this party, just to avoid unpleasant things from happening. The huge palace is decorated with incomparable luxury. In the eyes of many nobles, the precious works of art are like decorative objects placed everywhere. In the courtyard, all kinds of rare flowers and plants are also well organized. The servants who come and go are either tall and handsome or beautiful and charming. The elderly stewards are all quite temperamental and very calm. That's right, in the world of celestial dragons, if you are ugly, you are not even qualified to serve them. It is not the first time for Doflamingo to participate in such a gathering, so naturally he will not behave like a country bumpkin. He is accompanied by his cousin, Don Quixote Muse, who was taught by him on the Sabodi archipelago, Garuda Street. As for his cheap cousin, Claudius Saint, it is said that before World Summit opened, he seemed to have gone on vacation somewhere. Doflamingo reckoned that the guy must be very annoyed when he found out that he was cut off by the 5 elders, but he didn't dare to turn against him, so luckily he avoided it. For this kind of behavior, Doflamingo just wants to say, it really is too small to be successful. The gathering of celestial dragons can be said to be a 5-flower 8-gate, where there are all kinds of flowers. As soon as you enter this courtyard, you can see many celestial dragons comparing their slaves and treasures and sucking some messy contraband. Among the slaves, there are all kinds of races. Their expressions are numb, as if they have lost all hope in life, and only mechanical obedience is left. Even Doflamingo saw a new breed he developed in North Blue, Henego. It's boring. Doflamingo and Muscarid sat in the corner of the courtyard together, watching these weird Wylong people make trouble in the party. Seriously, if it wasn't for the 5 elders' face in the image of himself wanting to return to Marie Joyes, Doflamingo really wouldn't want to be part of this shitty party. Let him judge, that is, these parties seem to be high-end, but they are all low-level fun. Only these mediocre, born ricebugs would be interested in this. Cousin, it will be said later that there will be new slaves coming, and each family can choose some as gifts to take away. It seems that there is still devil fruit ability to perform. Muscarid sat down in a dignified manner, introduced beside Doflamingo. After being taught a lesson by Doflamingo on the Sabodi archipelago, he seems to be very peaceful during this period of time. Later, he heard that cousin Doflamingo is likely to become the commander of the Knights of God in the future. Muscarid Sheng has already decided, From now on he will only follow his cousin Doflamingo. Really? Doflamingo was not surprised. As the original celestial dragons, he certainly knew that the slaves of celestial dragons were depleted very quickly, so from time to time, new slaves would be brought in to make up for the depletion. Taking the wine glass from the hand of the beautiful maid, Doflamingo took a sip. It was indeed an extremely high-quality product. I have to say that although celestial dragons is a group of rice bugs, people enjoy really high-end. Some things, Doflamingo can't even get their hands on. Muscarad-san took great pains to tell Doflamingo some anecdotes about Marie Joyce's celestial dragons, trying to make Doflamingo look less boring. And Doflamingo also responded from time to time, which can be regarded as continuing the topic. After about half an hour, outside the courtyard, a group of slaves shackled in shackles were transported up. Originally, Doflamingo was not interested in these things, but when his eyes swept over the group of terrified new slaves, his eyes suddenly brightened, even a little surprised and unbelievable. What did he see? Boa Hancock. Although Hancock still looks like a little girl, Doflamingo can still recognize her at a glance with her beautiful and outstanding appearance. He was amazed at the inconsistency of time. In his impression, although Hancock was also captured and Marie Joyce was taken as a slave, it should be a year or two later, right? At the same time, he also noticed that the situation where the three sisters were supposed to be arrested together has also changed at this time. I don't know if her two sisters have not been arrested, or have been killed, or what else happened. Accident or something. In short, the current situation is that Boa Hancock appeared alone on this Marie Joyce, too. Fur. Interesting. Doflamingo laughed. Seeing that Doflamingo suddenly became happy, Muscarad-san asked curiously, "Cousin, what's the matter?" "Among this group of slaves, there are the types I like." Doflamingo raised his chin and said energetically. "Really?" Muscarad said happily. "Cousin, which one do you like? I'll go get it for you." "Don't be impatient. Maybe she still needs a little bit of sculpting." Doflamingo waved his hand to appease the holy way of Muscarad. "If I heard correctly just now, Congress still has the devil fruit ability to perform. To put it bluntly, it is to feed devil fruit to slaves and see what these slaves will become, so as to make fun for celestial dragons." To be honest, Doflamingo thinks this event is really a waste. With so many fruit abilities, it is better to leave it to Doflamingo. Even if it is sold, it is worse than being ruined by these celestial dragons. But at this time, Doflamingo is looking forward to it. Hancock has been captured as a slave in advance. Will the sweet fruit appear again? He will pay attention to the direction of this matter. If the sweet fruit does not appear, he will immediately stop Hancock from becoming an inexplicable ability user. If it does appear, he will be happy to see it succeed, and then take Hancock away. At this time, Hancock was also very panicked. She had been captured by Marie Joyce as a slave for almost 2 months. No, anyone who knows, this kind of training is mainly to grind off the edges and corners of the slave, so as not to get out of control and hurt the celestial dragons or something. The back is also branded with the hoof of the Tianxiang dragon. As the crown prince of Amazon Lily, Hancock has some understanding of celestial dragons. She is already very desperate at this time. Here, to meet her future, I am afraid that she can only be played with, tortured, and finally die tragically. Her terrified eyes kept sweeping over these giggling and watching celestial dragons, and finally, she saw a man who was out of the ordinary. And that man seemed to be staring at her with great interest. One by one the slaves were forcibly consumed with devil fruit, and the celestial dragons watched this scene laughing and laughing. "This is so ugly. Why did it turn into a pig all of a sudden?" Celestial dragons pointed at a slave and asked. These devil fruits that were taken out were not classified by the illustrated book. It's not that there is no record in the illustrated book, but that these celestial dragons are too lazy to look at it, so that by letting the slaves eat it, they can feel the joy of opening the Zon box by seeing the changes in the fruit's ability. Now this unlucky guy who ate the Zone's pig fruit ability has turned into a pig. Then he was disliked by all the celestial dragons, and no one wanted this slave anymore. Then kill it. A celestial dragons waved his hand. When the slave who turned into a pig heard this, he didn't want to be killed so casually, and wanted to resist after struggling, but he was restricted by the iron chains on his body. At the same time, the guards of the Topman family didn't have nothing to eat. They just went up and stabbed the blade into the slave's chest with great precision, crushing his heart. Such a bloody scene did not disgust the celestial dragons, but excited them all. Stupid Gillum. Why did you kill him? I was thinking that if some carnivorous zone ability user appears later, I will let him eat this pig. A young celestial dragons bluffed, he complained. The celestial dragons named Gillum was stunned for a moment, then patted his thigh remorsefully and said, "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Watching this scene, Doflamingo suddenly remembered the words Eustace Kid said in the original story. Compared with these guys, we pirates seem so kind. But these small episodes were quickly skipped, and the next slave was brought up. I don't want to eat this. The slave wailed in panic. But it was useless. A guard stepped forward, casually grabbed one of the dozen or so devil fruits displayed on the table, and forced it into the slave's mouth. After a while, the slave changed, and his whole body became limp, as if he had turned into a puddle of mud. Doflamingo can't tell what kind of ability this is. Probably Paramecia's, right? Huh. A certain celestial dragons seemed to be interested in this ability, and said happily, I want this, let him be familiar with the familiar ability, and after his whole body turns into a state of ooze, give him a work of art in a transparent bottle. Doflamingo really can't understand, where is there any artistic element in this? One after another, the slaves were fed with strange devil fruits. Some of the slaves were killed on the spot if no one liked them, and the ones that were liked would be collected by Tianlongray. Maybe when they get tired of playing, they will relieve these poor guys. Soon, Boa Hancock was pushed and shoved to the front of the crowd. When she came up, many celestial dragons became interested. This slave looks beautiful, doesn't it? It's just a brat with no breasts and no ass. Your taste is really bad. What do you know? Don't you have a few years of raising it? That little Roswald's son, doesn't he just like this one? Hey, I like it too, why don't you give her to me? Another batch of new devil fruits was served on the table. Looking at the number of slaves behind, Doflamingo understood that this should be the last batch of devil fruits for playing. Although he doesn't recognize most of them, after all, he won't run around with the devil fruit illustrated book, but Doflamingo is still very impressed with the sweet fruit. That thing is a rare twin fruit, like a conjoined lychee, with two peach heart-shaped fruits hanging from one branch. Maybe it was really a choice of fate? The sweet fruit that should not have appeared here was placed on the table. Huh. This devil fruit is so strange, how come it looks like two fruits? I've never seen anything like this. Why don't you keep it? Don't waste it, maybe it's quite powerful? Why do you keep it? You don't want to eat it. Could it be that you want to become a landlubber? A few celestial dragons argued for a while, but there was no result. Then the guard grabbed another devil fruit from the table and prepared to stuff it for Hancock. At this moment, Doflamingo said, feed her that strange devil fruit with two fruits. The guard was stunned for a moment, but still responded very quickly, yes, Lord Doflamingo. Although the rest of the celestial dragons are a bit strange, what does Doflamingo mean? But those who can come today have no enmity with Doflamingo, and they all know some inside information, so they are still very happy to give Doflamingo a face. Soon, Hancock was force-fed the sweet fruit, and the celestial dragons waited for a while, but found nothing change. What's the situation? Could it be that he received some fake devil fruit? Whose servants offered it? I said, how can there be a devil fruit with two fruits? Go back and check it out, and kill those guys who dare to fool us with fake products. Forget it. It doesn't matter if you don't have the ability, who wants this? The celestial dragons who thought Hancock was very beautiful at first said immediately, I want it, and it will be delivered to my house. But as soon as he said this, Muscarad, Doflamingo's dog-legged little cousin, took 2 steps up and slapped that guy on the face, saying, Crude, what the hell are you not doing? Wink. Didn't you see that my cousin is very interested in this slave? Crude covered his face, looked at Muscarad angrily and said, how dare you hit me? My father never hit me. As soon as the words fell, Crude kicked on Muscarad's calf. Muscarad let out a cry of pain, and then a vicious dog pounced on Crude's body, and the two of them were on the spot, rolled over and wrestled. And looking at this scene, the celestial dragons on the side didn't feel panic at all. Obviously, this wasn't the first time this happened, and many people were still cheering. Hit him on the nose, Crude. Step on his toes, Muscarad. Hit, Muscarad, hit me hard, beat Crude into a pig's head. I've long since disliked him. In fact, fighting between celestial dragons can't be said to be common, but it's not uncommon either. Some celestial dragons are drugged and high, and they will cause trouble everywhere, and the servants dare not provoke them, but the rest of the celestial dragons will not be used to them, and sometimes they can fight on the street. So, the celestial dragons are such a wonderful group. Doflamingo knew very well that even if these celestial dragons fought all afternoon, they wouldn't be seriously injured or killed. Looking at this scene, Doflamingo even wanted to say that it was raining too much, so stop fighting. But after all, he didn't bother to pay attention to these two treasures, and waved. Bring her here, I want this slave. The guard didn't dare to disobey Doflamingo, let alone get involved in the conflicts among these celestial dragons. He immediately dragged Hancock to Doflamingo's side, and handed him the chain tied around Hancock's neck. Grasping the slave chain, Doflamingo yanked hard, causing the stubborn Hancock to raise his head and look into his own eyes. There was an evil smile on the corner of Doflamingo's mouth, and he smiled at Hancock and said, "Furfur furfur, furfur furfur is indeed the seedling I fancy. The moment I eat the sweet fruit, I can control this ability. Do you live? Sure enough, it is very suitable for you." That's right, with his keen perception, Doflamingo felt that the moment Hancock ate the sweet fruit, Hancock had controlled the ability that was supposed to go berserk. Those who turned into pigs, slaves like ooze, did they want to show their abilities? No, it's just a manifestation of losing control of ability at the moment of eating devil fruit. This kind of situation will quickly dissipate. Doflamingo also experienced it back then. But Hancock is different. She seems to have controlled the explosion of this ability the moment she ate the sweet fruit. In other words, this little girl is very likely to want to hide her clumsiness. After hearing Doflamingo's words, Hancock's eyes became frightened, and it was obvious that Doflamingo was right. Stretching out his hand to stroke Hancock's smooth black hair, Doflamingo still maintained his sinister smile and said, "Don't be afraid, I'm different from those guys. What's the name?" Hancock looked at Doflamingo's smile, and thought, "You're even scarier than those people, okay." But at this time, she didn't dare to disobey Doflamingo at all, and said tremblingly, "Hancock. Boa Hancock." "Hancock? I've written down your name. My name is Donquixote Doflamingo, remember?" Doflamingo said, still rubbing Hancock's head with his hand. "Remember." Hancock replied hastily. During the 2 months of brutal training, she knew very well that she had to obey in this situation, otherwise she might be executed. She still doesn't want to die. She still wants to go back to Nine Snake Island, see her sisters again. She wants to regain her freedom. She wants revenge. Just like that, Doflamingo sat on the seat, holding the chain around Hancock's delicate neck with one hand, and holding the red wine glass in the other hand, taking a sip from time to time, watching with great interest the group of celestial dragons starting to kill again. As for the battle between Muscarad Saint and Crude, it has ended very briefly. It is obvious that the Donquixote family's strange workmanship is slightly stronger, and Crude has already conceded defeat. It was getting late, and it was obvious that this ridiculous party would continue, but what happened later was not acceptable to Doflamingo. After all, he doesn't want to share a woman with a group of pig-like celestial dragons, even if these chosen women are all very beautiful. So after the party entered the next stage, Doflamingo had already taken Hancock by the hand and left the abode of God. As for his eldest cousin, under Doflamingo's polite refusal, he didn't come out to see him off, but went to play happily with the group of celestial dragons. Walking on the brightly lit street, the shackles on his feet and the chains on his neck were shaking and colliding crisply, and Hancock was led to follow Doflamingo anxiously in his heart. She looked at Doflamingo's tall back in fear, not knowing what kind of miserable direction her future would take. Wake up from sleep, open your eyes, look at the strange ceiling, feel the soft mattress and comfortable quilt under your body. Hancock was still a little confused for a while. It seemed that it had been a long time since she had rested or slept in such an environment. She even felt that she was still dreaming. If it was really a dream, then she hoped that she could keep doing this and not wake up. That's right, the future pirate empress now only has this little, extravagant wish. From this, it can also be seen how terrifying the method of training slaves on Marie Joyce is, and it only takes 2 months to complete it quickly. Don't look at the short time, but during these 2 months, the slaves will encounter various methods that are simply unimaginable. 800 years of skill passed down on Marie Joyce, really, quite scary. There was a light knock on the door of the room, and before Hancock could answer anything, the door was opened, and then, Hancock looked at a little girl who seemed to be about the same age as him, dressed in a maid outfit. With a serious face, he looked like he walked in with a tray of folded laundry. Then, with Hancock's confused expression, the little maid put the clothes beside Hancock's bed and said, "You were too tired last night, and you seemed mentally exhausted, so I let you rest first, but today, you need to wash and tidy up immediately, get yourself clean, and then change out those dirty clothes." Hancock looked at the little maid with a serious face, didn't dare to refute anything, and said obediently, "Yes, I understand." The little maid then nodded in satisfaction and said, "But don't worry, your young master is different from these celestial dragons on Marie Joyce. As long as you are loyal to your young master, and we will regard you as a master. People come to look at and take care of them." Hancock? She was not surprised in the other factors in the little maid's words. Song was surprised that the little maid dared to call Wylong people pigheads on Marie Joyce. This is unimaginable during her training career of more than 2 months. During this period, she was indoctrinated that the celestial dragons are supreme, descendants of the Creator, and the blood of 20 kings. They are the most noble in the world. Man, no one can fight against brainwashing messages like celestial dragons. Don't tell me. Marie Joyce has such powerful means, so that in the original story, Hancock, even if he has escaped from Marie Joyce, even has become the Emperor of Amazon Lily, and has become the mighty pirate queen, but still hearing the name of celestial dragons, trembling with fear. That's why, for a guy like Luffy who slammed the celestial dragon's head on the Saboti archipelago, the favorability is directly full. Why are you looking at me in such surprise? The little maid asked a little strangely. What? What did you call celestial dragons just now? Hancock asked a little nervously. Did she hear wrong just now? Celestial dragon's pighead? What's the matter? Although I haven't seen it, but according to the words of the young master, they are a group of disgusting existences. Even calling them pigs is a bit insulting to pigs. The maid said naturally. There was a strong look of surprise in Hancock's eyes, and then asked, Is the young master Lord Doflamingo? That's right. The little maid said with a look of pride on her face. My lord, you are the blood emperor who is destined to rule the sea, the king of Dressrosa, Master Donquixote Doflamingo. After saying this, the little maid looked at the clock hanging on the wall, and then said, Okay, I just told you, you should do it quickly, the young master may have woken up, I'm going to serve the young master. As soon as the words fell, the little maid turned around and was about to leave, but at this moment, Hancock finally couldn't help saying, Please wait a moment. I am wearing shackles, and there is no way to take them off. Clothes, can you please help me take them off? I promise, I will not run away. But to be honest, Hancock didn't have much hope for this kind of request, he just wanted to try it. However, what I didn't expect was that as soon as she finished speaking, the little maid turned around proudly and said, Since you are asking for my help, there is nothing you can do. As she said that, the little maid took out a bunch of keys from her body and muttered, Which one did the young master give me last night? Similar words, she looked for the keys, and said excitedly, I found it. Holding the key, the little maid walked up to Hancock boldly, without stopping at all, and with a few clicks, she untied all the shackles and chains on Hancock's body. Seeing such a kind-hearted little maid, Hancock hesitated and said, Is this really all right? You won't be punished, right? HMPH, don't worry, when the young master handed me the key, everything will be self-evident, the little maid said confidently. She herself knew her faults, as long as it was someone else's request, she would not be able to refuse, and the entire Don Quixote family knew about her situation. But even so, the young lord gave her the key on Hancock last night. It goes without saying what this means. Okay, I'm leaving. The little maid Hockey waved her hand, then turned around and was about to leave. This time Hancock looked at her back, hesitated for a moment and called out, Well, can you tell me your name? Name? The little maid turned her head and said, Everyone calls me Baby5. After finishing speaking, the little maid closed the door and left. Looking at the closed door, Hancock said softly with soft eyes, Baby5? It's really a strange, and loved name. Soon, Baby5 knocked on the door of Doflamingo's room, still didn't need to wait for Doflamingo's response, just opened the door and went in. By this time Doflamingo had indeed woken up and was brushing his teeth in the bathroom. After hearing the movement, Doflamingo poked his head out of the bathroom while brushing his teeth, looked at Baby Dollar and said, How is that little guy named Hancock? Baby5. Baby 5 was tidying up the bed for Doflamingo at this time, and after she heard Doflamingo's voice, she quickly responded, I'm tidying up my appearance, I'll help her remove the shackles and the chain is broken. Is that so? Doflamingo replied without a word, spit out the foam in his mouth, rinsed his mouth, and began to wash his face again. Baby 5 quickly tidied up Doflamingo's mattress, and then wanted to help him clean up. Doflamingo said after noticing this scene, You don't need to tidy up these things, Baby 5, if we don't have any accidents today. Is Master Beckman coming? Baby 5 asked curiously in surprise. Yes, if everything goes well on the road, he will arrive in the afternoon. Doflamingo wiped his face with a towel and replied with a smile. After chatting about some trivial matters, Doflamingo finished his washing and came out to change clothes. Baby 5 also moved a very high stool and stood behind Doflamingo. In this way, she still had to tiptoe to help Doflamingo straighten the collar behind his neck. My lord, why did you bring a slave back? Baby 5 asked a little curiously. Standing in front of the mirror, Doflamingo fastened the buttons of his white lining one by one, and said with a smile, I see great potential in her. Maybe she will become even stronger than Charlotte Linlin. What about the role? Big Mom. Baby5 was surprised. Really? What did I lie to you for? Doflamingo smiled. The potential and strength of Hancock are indeed terrifying, because they are matched with her sweet fruit. And Hancock still has Conqueror's Hockey, only 1 in a million people is a born king. Honestly, she's no worse than Charlotte Linlin. After the 7 warlords of the sea system was abolished, Marine continued to attack 9 Snake Island. In this case, Hancock still crushed Marine and then quickly confronted Blackbeard himself and some of the cadres of the Blackbeard pirates brought by him. In such a situation of continuous fighting for a long time and then being attacked suddenly, Hancock was still able to defeat all enemies except Teach in an instant. And the reason why she fell into Teach's hands was mainly because the setting of Teach's dark fruit was indeed somewhat perverted. From the current point of view, it seems that those who have abilities are uncomfortable when facing Teach. Moreover, Teach, who controlled Hancock, did not dare to relax at all. He thought that as long as he let go, Hancock would definitely kill him instantly. In fact, the combination of Hancock and Sweet Fruit's ability is really a killer in this sea. First of all, the Sweet Fruit was developed fluently by Hancock to the extent that it involves rules, so in this sea, anyone who has the slightest affection for Hancock will be captured by this ability and touch the petrochemical standard. When the rules are activated, you will be gone. Even Doflamingo, after speculating for a while, felt that once Hancock made great achievements, he might not be able to beat Hancock. This kind of ignoring all factors, as long as your heart index reaches the standard, you will be placed on Hancock with a strange ability in seconds. It is simply unsolvable. Apart from the strength of Hancock himself, Doflamingo naturally also values Amazon Lily. This is a country with all fighters, and basically all of them have mastered armament hockey, a country with strong combat effectiveness. If it can be absorbed into the command, it is equivalent to directly controlling an elite army. Under the Red Line, at the port of Marie Joyce, a large group of celestial dragons gathered together curiously, watching the situation at the distant harbor. Is that really a boat? It looks like an island to me. I want this too. It is said to be the flagship of that Doflamingo. Isn't this too majestic? The Cervantes, as huge as an island, flew from the sky with great pressure and deterrence, and landed on this place, which surprised the celestial dragons on Marie Joyce. Form a group to watch the fun. Not to mention the rest of the nobles, large and small, and the people who eat melons from all walks of life. Now this port is full of people. And this kind of situation also made the Quixote family show a real experience from the side. Just such an island-level battleship is enough to shock people. As soon as this huge battleship stopped at the harbor, the rest of the ships couldn't even get in and out. Fortunately, this huge battleship didn't stay for too long. After Doflamingo and others got on board, it started up again. Under the envious and amazed gazes of the crowd, the Cervantes lifted off smoothly, jumped above the Red Line, and headed for the New World. On the deck as wide as the Square of Justice in Marineford, Doflamingo saw Beckman for a long time. As soon as he saw Doflamingo, Beckman started complaining. You don't know how much energy this ship consumes. I was almost pulled away to recharge it before departure, Beckman complained. So how long can you support its flight with one charge? Doflamingo asked curiously. If you turn on all the functions on the ship, you can support it for up to 7 days, but if you run it in the so-called energy-saving mode and only support power, you can sail for more than a month. Beckman thought for a while, said later. That's actually okay. Doflamingo nodded in satisfaction. Yes. Beckman said angrily, you guys, it's true that you don't feel pain in your back when you stand and talk. After you get back, let Quinn and the others study it to see if they can come up with a new energy device. I don't want to experience the feeling of being drained. No, 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 no drop. The energy of Thunderfruit is unlimited, Beckman, Doflamingo said earnestly. But my physical ability is limited, Beckman retorted. So the problem still lies with you. This fully shows that your physical fitness is not enough and you need to strengthen training. Doflamingo patted Beckman on the shoulder and said, if you are not strong, how can you keep up with my footsteps, woolen cloth? Then, without waiting for Beckman to speak again, Doflamingo pulled Diamante past him again and said, and look, I found you a helper. The charging device of the Cervantes can absorb many types of energy. Of course, Beckman's electric energy is the most convenient one, but Diaste's thermal energy can also be used by Pete. However, Diamante's strength is faster than the progress. It can even be said that Beckman, who is a little cheated, is slightly weaker, so upon hearing this, Diamante quickly said, Dover, if so, maybe. Diamante, you are so powerful, you must not be unable to shoulder the heavy responsibility like Beckman, right? Doflamingo spoke first. This guy Diamante is very funny. As long as you praise him, he will feel a little lost. No matter what kind of difficult task, he will bite the bullet and continue, pretending to be nonchalant. Originally Diamante wanted to refuse, but as soon as Doflamingo said this, his face twitched for a moment, and then he said proudly, well, since you have spoken like this, then leave it to me, all right. Doflamingo laughed and said, Beckman, look at Diamante's enlightenment, you should learn more. Beckman gave Doflamingo a blank look and said, "You can bully honest people here. The current manpower on the ship is not enough to support the Cervantes to show its full strength. The artillery equipped on the ship alone is not enough for the gunners. According to the previous design and budget, if this ship is to be fully fired and run at full capacity, it is simply impossible to play without a professional crew of more than 20,000. However, because there are not many people on board now, except for the gold that was picked up from Sky Island on the way to Beckman, there is almost no extra load, so the speed of the ship is faster than expected. Of course, the ship has not been fully organized yet, and it will have to be refurbished when it arrives in Dressrosa." After understanding the details of these meetings, the two big smokers, Beckman and Doflamingo, got together to chat about other things, while Diamante and the others went to study the ship curiously. Especially the newly joined Hancock. The others have more or less heard of such a ship, but she has no understanding at all. It is the first time she has seen such a magnificent and huge warship when she grows up so big. I even feel that this ship seems to be a circle larger than the entire Nine-Snake Island. Also because of this ship, she felt the power from the Donquixote family from the side. Speaking of Hancock, I have to mention Doflamingo's current arrangements for Hancock. Obviously, the two parties have no trust at all, so Hancock did not disclose his life experience to Doflamingo. Doflamingo also pretended not to know, since he didn't know your background, then Doflamingo didn't intend to send Hancock away right now. He is going to take Hancock to the New World first, to Dressrosa, and then to cultivate the relationship between her and the Donquixote family. In the future, when Hancock wants to tell himself about her life experience, Doflamingo will consider the next arrangement for her. Letting her go back to Amazon Lily is basically an inevitable choice, because Hancock is the crown prince of Amazon Lily, and she has been tempered by the Donquixote family for a period of time to increase her strength. After returning, it is almost certain that she will inherit the position of Emperor Matter. Only in this way can Doflamingo master the power of Amazon Lily through Hancock. Exhaling a breath of smoke slowly, Beckman sat with Doflamingo and asked, "How was it? This World Summit? How was the harvest?" "A lot has been gained. Basically, all the goals of the plan have been achieved. In 2 days, after the legislation of the world government is finalized, you should see the results in the newspapers," Doflamingo said. "Then next step." Beckman frowned. "Take the Donquixote family as the core, Dressrosa as the center, and those countries in the New World who want to seek our asylum, form an army that belongs to us in 10 weeks. Doflamingo said without hesitation. Having a large-scale army is a must, because Doflamingo will not stop its expansion, so as the territory expands, the number of troops that need to take on the responsibility of guarding must also keep up. After chatting about this, Doflamingo asked again, "What about you? Have you encountered any problems?" "Everything is going well on my side, but Master Tom seems to be in trouble." Beckman rubbed his chin and said, "Oh. Master Tom can be regarded as our friend. If we encounter any difficulties, we should help," Doflamingo said with a smile. "I think you're coveting other people's skills and talents," Beckman said with some amusement. "I have never denied this point. Our ship really lacks a powerful shipbuilder, doesn't it? As the chief engineer of this ship's construction and the world's #1 shipbuilder, I think no one is more suitable than Master Tom. This is the position," Doflamingo said bluntly. Beckman also nodded in agreement, and then talked about the troublesome things about Master Tom. It is roughly because Master Tom once built a ship for the Roger Pirates, and now it is being liquidated by the world government. Someone came from the Enies lobby, wanting to arrest Master Tom and go back to stand trial, but according to the world government's hatred of Roger, it almost didn't take a second thought to know that as long as he went there, he would be the death penalty. In the original story, Master Tom proposed the sea train project he was developing during this process. The world government thought this technology was very valuable, so he allowed Master Tom to continue researching. After the sea train is successful, according to the effect of the finished product, consider whether to give him immunity from punishment. Everything is normal up to here, but the bad thing is that after the sea train was built, the CP agency received the task of investigating the ancient weapon Pluto. Finally, the head of Master Tom was found, and then a moth came out. The result is that Master Tom was executed. It can be said that Master Tom would not have had an accident if it hadn't been affected by the ancient weapon incident. Thinking of this, Doflamingo immediately took out his phone bug and dialed out. After a while, a respectful voice came from the phone bug. "Master Doflamingo? Do you have any orders?" That's right, the person Doflamingo contacted was the cunning fellow Spandane. "Spandine," Doflamingo said with a relaxed tone. "Speaking of which, I wonder if the 5 of you have passed the exam. There is something about scholars." Doflamingo first started talking, and Spandane responded immediately after hearing the words. "Yes, The 5 adults have already told me that you will provide me with some help in this task, young master. If I can contact you if necessary. Well, this is roughly the case, but you also know that I just left Marie Joy's and haven't gone back yet. For specific investigations, I'll look for information when I go back. Doflamingo said with a smile. It should be. This task has been going on for a long time, and we also know that this is not something that can be completed in a day or two, so there is no rush, Spandane said quickly. Later, Doflamingo asked him to share this information with him, only to find out that Spandane and the others had begun to discover signs of Ohara. Sure enough, Ohara really can't contain the fire in doing this kind of thing. After all, Ohara itself does not have the strength to do it. But Doflamingo won't think it's outrageous if it's placed on any major force in the New World, like Whitebeard. If he goes to investigate the matter of the historical text, can Zhanjiangfu manage it? Didn't the Roger pirates do this again before? What can the world government do? If they can't catch anyone, can't they just stare blankly? After quickly dismissing these thoughts, Doflamingo said, by the way, speaking of it, there is a case about the capital of 7 Waters, which is in charge of your Enies lobby. The city of 7 Waters, is it about the shipbuilder who built the ship for the Roger pirates? Spandane asked. Yes, that's the thing, Tom of the Murlocs, Doflamingo said. That's right. The case has been settled 2 days ago. You don't have to worry. We also know that the shipbuilder is the one who built the ship for you. He is somewhat sympathetic. He is currently proposing a proposal to build a sea train. It seems that there has been some practical progress. Our Enies lobby here judges the value of this technology, which is very impressive. He should be pardoned for his crimes in the future. Don't worry, this matter, Spandane Shot said with chest. The investigation is over. Doflamingo frowned, thinking that you guys are quite efficient. Yes, even for your sake, we won't make things difficult. Spandane is still going to sell it. But at this moment, Doflamingo interrupted him and said, well, I am very optimistic about him, Spandane. I invited him to be a member of our Donquixote family before, but because of some trivial concerns, he refused. You know what I mean? Spandane? I honestly don't understand. So you are. Cough, I understand. Since this guy is so ignorant and dares to refuse your invitation, I don't think there is any need to show him shame. In this way, I will lead the team personally and go to Kishui now. Do you think it is appropriate to kill him on the spot? Spandane said immediately after thinking for a while. What's sea train anyway? In the view of Spandane's values, sea trains and the like must not have as much face as Master Doflamingo. Now among the upper echelons of the world's official government, whoever has a relationship, who doesn't know that heavenly Yaksha Don Quixote Doflamingo is the treasure in the palm of the 5 elders. Maybe someday they will return to Marie Joy's to be the head of the Knights of God. Guy is gone. This kind of person, if you want to mix in the world government system, you will not be willing to provoke him. Otherwise, people will wear small shoes for you in the future. Can you bear it? So upon hearing Doflamingo's words, Spandane immediately felt that this Murloc was courting death. At the same time, he was also afraid of Doflamingo's vengeance. This person just refused to join, and he was going to kill him. It seems that Master Doflamingo's mind is really gloomy, and he must not be offended in the future. Hearing Spandane's words, Doflamingo was also stunned. After 2 seconds, under Beckman's smile covering his mouth, Doflamingo said with a slight toothache, cough. I didn't mean that, you think about it again. Spandane was stunned again. Didn't he want revenge? This time, he thought about the current situation carefully, and finally there was a look of surprise in his eyes, and he said, you mean, with the help of the identity of 7 warlords of the sea asylum? I finally know why those 5 people like you so much. Doflamingo smiled evilly. In fact, Doflamingo didn't make it clear, and insisted on going around this detour. To a certain extent, it was also testing Spandane's ability. From the current point of view, he knows why Spanda is so popular with the 5 elders. Even after Spanda became old and retired, he can directly inherit the position of CP9 commander to the go-to-your-own stupid son. What's more, his son made such a big disaster in Enies lobby, and he was able to get involved in CPC afterward. It can be seen how influential Spandane is in this CP system. Such a smart person, Doflamingo likes it very much, because he is smart. Maybe at some point, there is a place where he can be used. If he's an idiot, he certainly doesn't deserve Doflamingo's work. Hearing this praise, Spandane didn't dare to be too proud, and said with a smile, it's all to better serve a big man like you. After a pause, Spandane said, look at this, I've overturned this case now, saying that even with the sea train technology, it can't offset the previous crime of building a ship for One Piece Roger, and then arrested him when you come to Enies lobby, close it first. Then you do some actions, and I will cooperate with you and let him go, or send you directly to Dressrosa. Well, Things must be done more beautifully, and don't leave any beginnings and ends, Doflamingo ordered softly. Spandane immediately said, "Don't worry, it won't cause you any trouble." Doflamingo's plan can be said to be very simple and rude. He colluded with Spandane to make Master Tom, who had a way to go, know where to go. At that time, he will come forward again, inquire about the situation on the grounds that he has heard some news from Beckman, and found out such a thing, so he decides to help Master Tom, and directly confront Tom with his identity as 7 warlords of the Seamaster takes refuge. In this way, as long as Master Tom is willing to join the Donquixote family, he will naturally be exonerated. As for whether Master Tom is willing to join, to be honest, Doflamingo didn't think Master Tom would want to die until the sea train was built. After such an operation, the Donquixote family's shipbuilder will be available, and Master Tom will no longer have to worry about the future. In fact, it is a win-win situation. As for the despicable means, Doflamingo thought he was not a good person at all, and it would not be impossible to apologize to Master Tom when the time is right later. To a certain extent, Doflamingo felt that his operation was even saving his life, and could avoid the situation where Master Tom would eventually die for some reason. What's more, with the financial support of his Donquixote family, and top scientists like Quinn and Guy Saw can also participate, this situation, this environment, is definitely better than Master Tom's tossing around in the capital of 7 waters alone. Sea train is so much better. Of course, Doflamingo will naturally accept this follow-up achievement. The sea train is a continuous industry that can directly generate huge amounts of cash. Set a small goal, when the time comes, fill the new world with sea trains. After arranging this matter, Doflamingo didn't say anything more to Spandane, and after encouraging him a few words, he hung up the phone. And at this time in Eni's lobby, in the commander's office, Spandane was sitting at the table, looking at the phone bug in his hand, with a hesitant expression. At this moment, there was a knock on the door of his office, and after Spanda responded, an agent came in with a little girl. It was Khalifa Spandane who was ready to set eyes around Doflamingo. "Sir." The agent seemed to be about to say something, but Spandane waved his hands a little irritably and said, "Okay, Khalifa stays, you go down first." "Yes." The agent didn't talk nonsense, turned around and left. Khalifa stood timidly at Spandane's desk, looked at the CP9 Supreme Commander with doubts in his eyes, and was also very puzzled in his heart. "I was suddenly called from the training camp today. Could it be that there is some separate mission arranged for me?" Spandane looked at the young Khalifa, and the hesitation in his eyes became more intense. He's been feeling a little uneasy since he got the phone bug from Doflamingo. "I'm sending Khalifa to lurk beside Master Doflamingo right now, following the orders of the Lord Five Elders, but if one day in the future, Master Doflamingo successfully returns to Marie Joy's, if he doesn't know about this, forget it. If I know, how should I deal with myself?" Spandane thought about this matter very complicatedly in his heart. To be honest, if Doflamingo's future is simply to develop in the direction of pirates, even if he will become One Piece or something, Spandane will not hesitate to send Khalifa directly and it will be over. But now, the more he thinks about it when he comes back, the more he will be wrong. I will put eyes on Master Doflamingo now, and when the Master becomes successful in the future and knows about this, will the 5 elders protect me? Spandane thought about it with his toes, and he was able to get the answer, that is, 5 elders would never admit to this matter, let alone protect him. If Master Doflamingo's value exceeds his original imagination, it is estimated that 5 elders will be there. Master Doflamingo silenced his Spandine before returning to Marie Joy's. In order to avoid any unpleasant things happening later, which will affect the relationship between people. To be honest, as the commander of CP9, Spandane is naturally not a simple person. He has seen too many such things. It doesn't make sense. If you put it on yourself, this kind of thing won't happen. But the question now is, 5 elders' orders have come down, will he dare not do it? If you don't do it, you will probably die faster. So what is before Spandane now is, either die immediately, or be silenced with a high probability in the future. That's what smart people do. But Van Spandine, who is a little stupid, probably doesn't think so far into the future. He can even have countless excuses to perfuse himself, such as Doflamingo's business collapsed in the middle of the business. After all, New World is so dangerous. What if Doflamingo can't grow to return to Marie Joy's? Maybe a storm tomorrow will kill him? Maybe when Whitebeard went mad, he beat him to death? These excuses, to Spandine, there are as many as they want, but, as a smart person, he really doesn't want to gamble his life on such illusory things. So he wanted to find a way to have the best of both worlds. Actually, if you think about it carefully, this must be because the adults of 5 elders are too preoccupied. Master Doflamingo has such a wide and bright road in front of him, how could he have other thoughts? That is too stupid, celestial dragons, the leader of the Knights of God. Who can refuse? Spanda murmured silently in his heart. Especially Spandane also knew that this young master was very obsessed with the position of celestial dragons, and even killed his own father back then. So Spandane thought over and over again, and felt that Doflamingo would definitely follow this road to heaven in the future and return to Marie Joyce with glory. In this way, do I really need to go online to monitor? I don't think there's any need for this. Otherwise, let's give the young master a breath in advance, and then let Khalifa make up his mind. In this case, in the future. If Master Doflamingo is willing to help him, wouldn't this calamity be over? Spandine's work efficiency is still very high. About the 7th day, Master Tom, who was happily developing the sea train technology in the capital of Seven Waters, was suddenly captured by a group of Eni's lobby agents. During this process, Spandane did not show up at all. On the contrary, a few villains were arranged to play Master Tom. It probably means that it is of no use to us people that you have made a sea train. On the contrary, it is a great achievement for us to arrest and execute you, the guy who built the ship for One Piece. With such a comparison, why didn't we arrest you? Not to mention, as soon as this kind of words were said, Master Tom suddenly felt that it really made sense. He engages in sea trains, these damn bastards can't enjoy any credit, and if he is killed, it will be a great achievement for these bastards. Given the darkness and corruption of the world's government, they would do this, it is simply too reasonable. In the prison, Master Tom grabbed the fence of the cage angrily and roared, "You damn fellows, you don't even know what kind of technology you have blocked. That will be trans-epical." "Rory, you're so wordy, you're going to die." The CP agent laughed. "He, we like you, the unlucky guy who has no background and has committed serious crimes," another agent also sarcastically said. Then the two left the prison, leaving Master Tom still roaring in the cage. After leaving the prison, the two agents saw Spandine standing outside wearing a fur coat and biting a cigar. "How?" Spandane raised his brows and asked softly. "It's been arranged, sir, and we gave him a little hint." The agent quickly responded. "Sir, do you need to keep up with the follow-up punishment?" Another agent hesitated. "Follow." Spandane immediately said. "Of course you have to do everything in a complete way, and you can't leave any lies. Just treat me like a normal death row prisoner." "How long will he be locked up?" the agent asked again. "You can't let it out too easily, let's lock it up for a month." Spandane thought for a while. After all, it would not be appropriate to be locked up for too long. How can a death row prisoner be locked up all the time? In this way, Master Tom was kept in prison for almost a month, whipped and tortured 10 times every day, trying to dig out the rest of the One Piece gang from his mouth. But Tom is also very helpless. "I am a shipbuilder, how do I know where they are hiding?" "You bastard, you're quite stubborn. You insisted on not saying anything for so long, right?" A whip fell on Tom, and Master Tom gritted his teeth, insisting on remaining silent. "Do you want to dip him in some salt water, chili water or something?" Another person came over with a basin of salt water. "All right." The whipper put his whip in salt water and began to soak it. Master Tom looked at this scene, and he was still very tough, silent. After about a few minutes, I felt that the salt water had soaked the whip, and the agent was ready to mobilize the people again. But at this moment, the door of the cage opened suddenly, and in the dark corridor, a guy in a suit and leather shoes rushed in. Seeing Master Tom's appearance, the figure cursed angrily. "You guys, bastards, bugs, what have you done to Master Tom?" As soon as the voice fell, the figure stepped forward and kicked the person who was about to whip the whip to the ground. That's right, it was Spandane who rushed in at this time. After he kicked his little brother, he quickly stepped forward and pretended to check Master Tom's injury. How should I put it? CP agents have their own unique skills. Master Tom looks miserable, but in fact, this is all those who have kept their hands are all skin trauma. As long as the CP people don't want you to die, here, you really can't die. "Master, is Dao okay?" Spandane asked with concern. "You are." Master Tom's eyes lit up, and he recognized Spandane, who was the guy back then, and said that he could use the sea train technology to reduce his sentence or something. "It's all my fault. It's all my fault for not being strict with my subordinates, so this kind of thing happened. If Master Doflamingo didn't suddenly ask me for someone today, I wouldn't even know you were arrested by us." "Misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding, Spandane said with a look of embarrassment and anxiety. Master Tom was stunned for a moment, then asked in surprise, "Obviously?" "Yeah, you said that you were really true. You have been here for such a long time, and you didn't tell us. If you knew that you were a member of the Donquixote family and a subordinate of the 7 warlords of the sea, how could we do such a thing?" "What?" Spandine turned around and cursed angrily while talking. "What are you two still doing here? hurry up and untie all the shackles on Master Tom. Master Tom also came back to the memory at this time, and quickly said, I am not Tang. But he was on the verge of speaking, and he was a little bit speechless at this moment. If I deny it now, wouldn't it delay the good intentions of Doflamingo? And he's really had enough of this damn place and doesn't want to die. The current research and development of the sea train is at a critical moment. After finally making a fortune by building ships for Doflamingo, he is not short of money in a short time. He really wants to build the sea train. Therefore, after hesitating for a moment, Master Tom finally swallowed the sentence. I am not a member of the Donquixote family. Let's accept a favor from Doflamingo first, and repay him when I have a chance in the future. Soon, Master Tom was released, and Spandane also specially found a healing system user to treat the injuries on Master Tom's body, and he recovered immediately. In the ward, after Spandane comforted Master Tom, he said, We are arranging the boat now, and you can board the boat later, don't worry. We will send you to Dressrosa soon. Master Tom? Wait. Dressrosa? Shouldn't it be the capital of Seven Waters? I want to go back to the capital of Seven Waters, Master Tom said hastily. This. Spandane hesitated for a moment, and then continued, but Master Doflamingo told me that he must see with his own eyes that you are safe and sound, otherwise, you should go to Dressrosa first. Otherwise, I would not be able to deal with Master Doflamingo. Under Spandane's various rhetoric, Master Tom also felt that he had returned to the capital of Seven Waters in such a quiet manner, and he was indeed a little sorry. In any case, he should go to Dressrosa and thank Doflamingo in person. So he finally nodded in agreement. After that, Spandane left the ward without further delay. After returning to the office, Spandane breathed a sigh of relief, and finally arranged the matter explained by Doflamingo, so he planned to call Doflamingo and report the situation. On the other hand, after more than a month of sailing, Doflamingo finally arrived in Dressrosa. Sure enough, once the Cervantes parked around Dressrosa, it seemed like an extra island was added out of thin air. Just when Doflamingo set foot on the high ground of the king and looked at Dressrosa's brand new and magnificent royal court that had been built in 7s and 80s and was basically done, Span Leisure's call came. Doflamingo answered the phone and said, Spandine? How's it going? Everything has been arranged. The process of the matter is roughly like this. You can check again to see if there is any mistake. Spandane quickly reported the situation in the past month to Doflamingo in detail. Generally speaking, there is no mistake at all. Doflamingo admires Spandine's methods very much. After all, he is an agent. Okay. Let's arrange it like this, send Master Tom to Dressrosa as soon as possible. Doflamingo ordered. He was still thinking in his heart, after he hung up the phone, he would quickly arrange for someone to take over the family members, apprentices, and objects of the sea train of Master Tom in the capital of Seven Waters, saying that he was afraid during Master Tom's absence, if something unexpected happens, take it over to take care of and protect him. In this way, it will be better to convince him to stay in Dressrosa. After finishing talking about this, Doflamingo suddenly found that Spandine, who was very straightforward before, seemed a little hesitant this time. Thinking of this, Doflamingo frowned, and said to the phone bug very intimately, Spandine, we have met several times, and I have a very good impression of you, and I appreciate you very much. If you have any difficulties, or need my help, just speak up. Master, you are truly a kind-hearted, generous and benevolent monarch. Spandane flattered at first, and then said, in fact, the thing is like this. You also know that as a superior, trust is a kind of grace reward, but unlimited, unrestricted trust. It's the root of the disaster. Doflamingo raised his eyebrows and continued. Of course he knows this truth, unlimited trust, without corresponding measures, will definitely bring disaster in the end. So even the Donquixote family has its own set of rules about this. Yes, that's what it means, so although the 5 adults trust you very much, they still gave me a task. Spandane hesitated for a moment, and then directly began to explain to Doflamingo. Doflamingo was not surprised when he heard this. In fact, since he left Marie Joy's, he has been thinking about how 5 elders will use to examine himself. After all, if he were 5 elders, it would be impossible to say that it was true and not take any measures, allowing him to play around with Doflamingo in New World. Now it seems that the method is on Spandine. However, Doflamingo is also suspicious. Could it be that Spandane's procedure is only on the surface? Is it used to relax his Doflamingo's vigilance? What's more, Spandane himself didn't know the deep meaning of 5 elders. In the process of ignorance, he was treated as a cover, a real means, and another way? This is not impossible, so after listening to Spandine's explanation, Doflamingo still did not relax his vigilance towards Marie Joy's. You don't have to move, but I can't do it without a response. Really? I know the specific situation. This is what should be done. Doflamingo responded calmly. Seeing that Doflamingo didn't get angry because of this, Spanda breathed a sigh of relief, and then said, as for our side, when we escort Mr. Tom to Dressrosa this time, we will send you there as well, right? A little girl named Khalifa. Her memory is very good, she is also a grandmaster in basic fighting skills, and in terms of talent, she is also outstanding. Spandane introduced Khalifa in detail. When Doflamingo heard this, he frowned. Khalifa. In the original story, a member of the CP organization Lucci. When it comes to Khalifa, Doflamingo is not very interested, but when it comes to Rob Lucci, Doflamingo is very interested. He patiently listened to Spandine's introduction to Khalifa, and then agreed. Yes, she is fine, but Spandine, speaking of it, I do lack some seedlings, since that the 5 asked you to put some eyes on me. Why don't you put more? I heard that your CP organization has its own training camp. Have you introduced any outstanding talents recently? Spanda was very confused because of this. No. I have been in the industry for so many years, and this is the first time I have seen someone chasing us for eyes. But on second thought, what is this? Doesn't this just prove that Master Doflamingo doesn't care if someone from the world government is monitoring him? Further shows that Master Doflamingo has no guilt at all, and he never treats us as outsiders at all. This is a clear sense of ownership, as expected of the young master who will return to Marie Joy's sooner or later and become a big shot again. If someone else spoke up, Spandane might hide his hand, but Doflamingo has said so why don't you hurry up and contribute your best? Not for anything else, just to brush up the favorability, and maybe save my life because of certain things in the future. Having been in this dark industry for so many years, Spandane is well aware of one truth, that is, sometimes, people like them are helpless, irresistible things, even death, are nothing to the real big men. It is a problem that can be solved with one sentence. And the reason why he is willing to form this fate with Doflamingo, to put it bluntly, is not to ask for a sentence for himself? No problem, since you've spoken. And seriously, you've come at the perfect time, Spandane said immediately. Best time? How? Doflamingo asked. Currently in our training camp, there is a little guy who just joined for a short time, but he is amazing. After our tests and comparisons, the potential and strength that this little guy has shown now, compared with all the previous ones, the age group record, is truly well-deserved number 1. In the words of our CP9, if this kid continues to grow up like this, he is likely to become the strongest in 800 years, Spandine said a little excitedly. The person he mentioned is officially Rob Lucci. Compared with Khalifa, who has been a member of the CP agency for several generations in his family, Lucci has only been accepted into the agency not long ago, so his loyalty, values, etc. not fully developed. But it doesn't matter. What Master Doflamingo wants is not these, but strength and potential. Rob Lucci fits the bill perfectly. Originally, Spandane was planning to cultivate Lucci as his secret weapon, and leave it to his idiot son as the main card at the right time in the future. In fact, in the original story, Spandine does just that. But now, in Spandane's view, it is more worthwhile to invest in using an ungrown Lucci in exchange for Doflamingo's favorability. Because when Master Doflamingo returns to Marie Joy's in the future, all he needs is a word, and his stupid son can go straight to the top. What more bicycles are needed? Regarding the current situation, Spandane can see very clearly that he has some connections within the world government and has a certain background. This is no problem, otherwise, he would not be able to talk to 5 elders and become one of the more important members of elders. However, this relationship ends here. In the cognition of all the members of the world government, Celestial Dragons is undoubtedly the top. Countless nobles, high-ranking officials, and members of institutions all want to be able to partner with Celestial Dragons. Relationship. The same goes for Spandine, except that the Celestial Dragons don't take these guys that come closer seriously. Therefore, Spandane has not been able to achieve his wish so far, and the appearance of Doflamingo brings a new twist. Although the young master is no longer Celestial Dragons, in Spandine's opinion, he will become the top Celestial Dragons sooner or later. Now, this is the only opportunity for him to get in touch with Doflamingo like this. If you don't hurry up and invest, if you hesitate, you will regret it sooner or later. So the current situation basically means that as long as Doflamingo asks for it, as long as Spandane has it, he is willing to give it. Doflamingo itself was waiting for such a sentence, so after Spandane mentioned Rob Lucci, Doflamingo said happily, "Is it the strongest in the past 800 years? It sounds very capable, I like it very much, this is a promising seedling worth cultivating." Upon hearing this, Spandane immediately said, "Young master, if you like it, I will also send Lucci directly to Dressrosa this time." Furfurfur, are you not in trouble? Doflamingo asked with a pretentious smile. Spanda Yin smiled brighter at the phone bug, and said without hesitation, no embarrassment, no embarrassment, it is our honor to serve you. Okay. Then please, Spandane, I appreciate you and like you very much. If you encounter any troubles in the future, you can call me as a staff officer. Doflamingo gave some light promises. But in Spandine's opinion, that's enough. Yes, yes, thank you very much, young master. It's still the same sentence. If you have anything that you can use me in the future, young master, please just tell me. I, Spanda, will definitely go through fire and water, Spanda sincerely said. To put it bluntly, isn't the end of their CP organization dedicated to serving Wylong? So now he directly chooses to serve Doflamingo. Isn't it a one-step solution, directly saving decades of detours? After a few more pleasantries, Doflamingo hung up the phone call. He stood on the king's high ground, and the cool wind blew by, causing the feather coat on his shoulders to sway. Raising his hand and pushing the frame on the bridge of his nose, Doflamingo grinned at the corner of his mouth, revealing a happy smile. Khalifa is just an addition. According to Spandine, the 2 third-generation members of this girl's family are members of the CP organization. It is estimated that values, worldviews, and loyalty have been brainwashed. In a short time, there is no need to expect to turn her around, and Doflamingo has no intention of spending such thoughts on her. But Ra Bellucci is different. Spandane said that Ra Bellucci was just absorbed into the CP agency. He was originally a war orphan. For Doflamingo, this is a seedling worth cultivating. Lu Chi's talent is very powerful. In the original story, the fruit ability is a little hip, and he can't keep up with the top talent. If he replaces his cat fruit leopard form ability with the ability of some kind of phantom beast, or even the ability of ancient species, to be honest, maybe the Straw Hat Pirates will give it to Eni's lobby. Now, Ra Bellucci is still a blank slate and has not eaten any devil fruit, which gives Doflamingo enough room to play. Such a good seedling needs to be properly arranged for him. Here, Doflamingo thinks about all this nonsense. At the same time, Shaki and Crocodile are sitting at the wine table together in Melview, a secret place in the New World. It wasn't long before the two of them returned to Shiki's lair, and at this time Shaki and Crocodile had already shed their prisoner clothes and returned to their original preferences. Especially Shaki, his legs have now been replaced by 2 famous swords, and he has directly evolved into a full-body swordman form. When they were in prison before, they had no conditions, but now that they came out, they discovered that they still have a common hobby, which is smoking cigars. At this time, Shaki was sitting at the table with a big grin, with a cigar in his mouth, smoking, looked at Crocodile and said, I've already told you all about Lousy's big plan. How about it? Do you want to talk to me? Let's join forces and take down this world? Crocodile's expression was still the iconic indifference. He was also biting a cigar, puffing, and pouring himself a glass of wine. Picking up the wine glass and taking a sip, Crocodile said, I refuse. Gia ha 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 ha. Shaki laughed and said, you were really arrogant, brat. For the sake of helping me escape from Imperdon, I can give you a chance to be equal to me, but you always define this joint relationship as a subsidiary relationship. It's 10,000 years too early for me to drink your adopted son's wine, Shaki, Crocodile said in a cold tone. That's right. If Shaki is really willing to treat Crocodile as an equal and join forces, Crocodile also thinks it's not impossible. But Shaki always wants to take him as a younger brother, which makes Crocodile very unhappy. Jihahaha. If you want to be equal to Lousy, you are still 110,000 years away, Shaki said with a big laugh. He doesn't hate Crocodile's arrogance, but he won't allow Crocodile to really be equal to him. Otherwise, if news spread, where would his face be placed? A kid who was defeated by Whitebeard, is he equal to him? Whitebeard would laugh out loud when he found out. Although it should be impossible to join forces, Shaki and Crocodile have no intention of falling out. It seems that the two are very accustomed to ridiculing each other like this. After drinking a few more glasses, Shaki seemed to be drinking a little bit more, and said angrily, damn, it's all because of that bastard Roger. If he was willing to join forces with Lousy earlier, we would have taken this sea well. It's good now, he's dead if he says he's dead, and Lousy has to think about this ancient weapon again. Or is it said that Shaki is a serious hero with strong mobility, and before that, he was the overlord pirate most feared by Marine? Take the matter of ancient weapon for example. It's not that there are people who covet this kind of power, but there are really few who are as powerful as Shaki. The vast majority of people gave up because of the obstruction of the world government and the difficulty of finding this thing. So far, no one seems to have found any ancient weapon. When Shaki first heard about this thing, he was on the Rock's ship. Later, he became very interested in this legendary power that can destroy the world. Knowing some news about ancient weapon, including the power of Poseidon, gave him a new idea. After Roger's death, Shiki completely lost the sign and direction of looking for ancient weapon. If he was an ordinary person, he might have given up. But Shiki doesn't. What the hell, I can't find ancient weapon, I can't make one yet. So he planned to follow Poseidon to create enough monsters stronger than sea kings to use as his weapons to conquer the world. Not only could Shiki think of such a mind-opening thing, he even did it, which shows how terrifying his execution and action capabilities are. Speaking of ancient weapon, the information Shiki knew was Poseidon, and crocodile. Under that cold expression, there was also a flash of hesitation. Crocodile fought Douglas Bullet several times before going to jail. The two can be regarded as the type who don't know each other, and Bullet was a member of Roger's pirates before, and he knew some secrets more or less. When he fought Crocodile once, he accidentally revealed something about ancient weapon news. That is Pluto. According to Bullet, it is that Alabasta has a historical text, and this historical text is recording the whereabouts of ancient weapon Pluto. In fact, at the beginning, Crocodile didn't take these things seriously at all. Back then, Crocodile and his brothers had big ambitions. He was the brightest star in New World at that time, he was very active, and many forces were very optimistic about him, and Crocodile was indeed not top-notch in strength, but he was not a bad one in New World. With such strength, Crocodile will of course be young and energetic. He thinks that ancient weapons are things that only the weak will consider. A hero like him should use his true strength to conquer everything. So Crocodile didn't look for anything like Pluton. After being arrogant for a while, he resolutely decided to challenge Whitebeard, who is known as the strongest man. The latter result was obvious. Crocodile suffered the worst defeat since his debut, and was directly cleaned up by Whitebeard with a crushing attitude. After he fled with his defeated soldiers, he was betrayed by his subordinates because of serious injuries. Fortunately, Crocodile saved a hand and finally killed all these traitors. Since then, Crocodile no longer believes in the existence of subordinates. For him, these are just for use. This is also the reason why Crocodile has not formed any pirates so far. Currently, he belongs to Lone Ranger. After experiencing various things such as fiasco and betrayal, Crocodile has also matured a lot, and no longer rejects emperors other than personal strength. He also became interested in the ancient weapon that could destroy everything. To be honest, if nothing unexpected happened, Crocodile's original plan was to be in Logue Town in East Blue. After watching the execution scene of One Piece Roger, he had no plan to return to New World. Going to Alabasta, I will try my best to find out the legendary ancient weapon banquet master, Pluto. Once the ancient weapon can be revived, with Alabasta's millions of soldiers and his own personal strength, Crocodile feels that he has the possibility to conquer the world, defeat Whitebeard, and become the strongest. That's the original plan for Crocodile. Then, because in Logue Town, seeing Doflamingo's instinct was not pleasing to the eye, I owed a hand for a while. I had a few tricks with Doflamingo, which angered Marine, and in the end not only failed to become Alabasta, but was directly arrested to Imper sitting in prison. It's embarrassing. Now that he has escaped from the big prison, after following Shiki to come home to recuperate, he heard that a big man like Shiki is also thinking about how to research and use the power similar to ancient weapon, which makes Crocodile feel even more, his own the idea is right. He didn't tell Shiki anything about Pluto. After all, although Shiki can be regarded as saving himself, the two sides can't completely become partners in cooperation because of this. Especially when both sides are such rebellious existences. Crocodile thought for a while, and decided to head towards Alabasta after leaving Shiki's place. As for Shiki's kindness and so on, in the future, if my plan succeeds and dominates the world, if the old Shiki is not dead, I will leave him a second in command position. It's not impossible. Thinking of this, Crocodile stopped being polite, and immediately said, "After today's drink, I'm going to leave." Really? Shiki wasn't surprised. Crocodile was such a rebellious person who didn't want to be his little brother, so it was inevitable for him to leave Melview. Shiki has no intention of forcibly keeping Crocodile, there is no need for this. After a pause, Shiki said, "Lousy won't send you off, but if you figure it out in the future, the door to my place will be open for you at any time. Jihahahaha. HMPH. Crocodile snorted coldly, and said proudly, "I'll give you the same sentence." In the early morning of the second day, on the towering Melview, a streak of yellow sand rolled over and disappeared with the sea breeze. Sand crocodile, separate from Shiki. See Circle Calendar in early 1503, Dress Rosa, the new royal court of the Donquixote family, was finally fully completed. Judging from the scale of the building, it is very grand. Normally, this is not like a project that can be completed in just a year, but the demon fruit power is so unreasonable. With Pika, the most arduous and time-consuming project was completed in just a day or two. The subsequent various decorations, embellishments, and modification of corners and corners took the longest time. At the beginning of 1503, in January, there was a big news that swept the whole sea. Related to 7 warlords of the sea. Prior to this, although 7 warlords of the sea stipulated the system and the number of people, but so far, only Don Quixote Doflamingo and his wife, who are called Goyasha, are in office. And this situation, at the beginning of the new year, was broken. In recent years, Dracule Mihawk, known as a kendo maniac, is most likely to reach the top of kendo and become the world's #1 swordsman. In the early days of the Great Pirate Era, Dracule Mihawk was also known as the double star of the era, with Don Quixote Doflamingo, was invited by naval headquarters in the world government, officially joined the 7 warlords of the sea organization, and became the second 7 warlords of the sea after Doflamingo. To be honest, according to the declaration and tone set by the world government for the 7 warlords of the sea, this organization is going to become a powerful organization with a combat power no less than that of the naval headquarters. But at the beginning, everyone took this matter as a joke. What is the scale and combat power of naval headquarters? Your world government will do it if it says it will? And when Doflamingo served as 7 warlords of the sea, he was still on the Fishmen Island. At that time, except for the vigorous and fierce battle between Cervantes and Sengoku in North Blue, the rest of his prestige about strong strength was actually not enough. But soon, after Doflamingo won the name of 7 warlords of the sea and entered New World, he became a big fan of Kamui, defeated Charlotte Linlin in one fell swoop, and executed Buster Call with naval headquarters to eliminate Douglas Bullet, the successor of the Ghost. Lost. Later, he attacked Beehive Island with his friend Dracule Mihawk, and Ochaku's whereabouts and death are still unknown. This series of achievements undoubtedly proves the strength of Doflamingo. At the same time, the Don Quixote family has indeed gained a firm foothold in New World. It can also be said that Doflamingo raised the style of 7 warlords of the sea by himself. And now, as the man closest to the position of the strongest swordsman, Hawkeye Dracule Mihawk has also joined 7 warlords of the sea, undoubtedly adding another powerful force to this organization, and the gold content is not at all decline. Nowadays, no one in the sea has gone back to laugh at the 7 warlords of the sea's overreaching. If the 5 future 7 warlords of the sea have this kind of ability, they will not be inferior to, or not lag behind. There are too many powerful figures like Doflamingo and Mihawk, and the 7 warlords of the sea, which has gathered 7 such top powerhouses, is indeed qualified to be compared with naval headquarters. Even many people began to look forward to the arrival of this day. Regarding the fact that Mihawk became 7 warlords of the sea, Doflamingo is not surprised at all, because he is the initiator of this matter, the middleman. Because of his suggestion, Mihawk decided to become 7 warlords of the sea, and also under his matchmaking, Mihawk and naval headquarters have achieved certain communication. So after Mihawk took office, Doflamingo just made a phone bug, simply congratulated the other party and it was over. Mihawk still had that indifferent look, thinking that Doflamingo was very strange, so why congratulate him on such a thing? He also said that after he finished his fight with Marine swordsman, he would come to Dressrosa to meet him or something. For things like Mihawk's coming as a guest, Doflamingo is of course very welcome. It's over. I didn't say anything. The royal court of Dressrosa covers almost the entire Highland of the King, and the flower fields that were originally developed to the outside world are also included in the royal court. The style of the royal court highlights a big, beautiful, magnificent, and spectacular. The designer Aunt Jola referred to the description of the giant members of the Don Quixote family, and also went to the Fishmen Island to observe the architectural style of the Fishmen Island in person. It is precisely because the Don Quixote family now has members of the giant race and members of the Murloc race, and these two races are notoriously easy to appear tall. Therefore, the royal court of Dressrosa, the buildings are basically unfolded according to the scale of the giant family. Same as the design in Cervantes Island back then, there is also a dark waterway in the royal court that can directly connect to the outer sea. At the same time, a water park-like residence for the Murlocs and mermaids was built. At the same time, a steel bridge was built on the King's Highland that directly runs through the coast of Dressrosa and reaches Greenbit Island. By the way, I cleaned up the Beddas who were settled here. There are members of the Murlocs and mermaids, and the Beddas are currently it has been domesticated and has become a kind of guard force in the sea area around Dressrosa. The passage to Greenbit Island was opened from the Highland of the King, and the Don Quixote family successfully brought the little people under their command. In fact, this is not difficult. If you want to talk about why. Because the little people are very simple, they believe what you say. It is also very simple to get them. But unlike in the original story, Doflamingo didn't intend to oppress them. That's right, In the end, Doflamingo still decided to let Guy spread that shoddy ghost shit to make zone devil fruit into mass production, which requires the little people to help cultivate the related fruits. Doflamingo means to directly pay the little people and hire them come to work, and provide them with a lot of living supplies, and signed a contract of friendship and cooperation with the little people. In the process of dealing with the little people, the Quixote family also found a devil fruit on Greenbit Island. It is the healing fruit of paramecia. Doflamingo has an impression of this thing. In the original story, it should have been eaten by Princess Manchueli of the little people. But looking at it now, Manchueli probably hasn't met this fruit yet. Can be considered cheap Doflamingo too. Of course, this devil fruit was eaten by Dr. Nelson, who hurried over before it was warmed up. Generally speaking, the devil fruit ability of the healing system is very rare. Once it appears, it will be bought back by the world government at a high price. Therefore, except for luck, there is a high probability that the healing system will not be seen on the market. Capable. Therefore, Dr. Nelson's long-cherished wish to become a person with healing ability has not been successful. And the reason why he wanted to become an ability user of the healing department, in the final analysis, was to study how to treat platinum lead disease. It is a pity that the healing fruit of paramecia cannot treat platinum lead disease like the op fruit in the original story, but Dr. Nelson cooperated with his knowledge and used the healing ability to greatly relieve the pain of his family. The pain caused by the platinum lead disease in China even delayed the pace of death to a certain extent. For Dr. Nelson, this is already a great achievement. Because this at least gives hope. If you can't find op fruit, Dr. Nelson thinks it's a way to develop the fruit ability to the awakened form. Nelson. Doflamingo was sitting at his desk right now, and gently wrote Nelson's name on the notebook in front of him. On it, not only the name of Dr. Nelson, but also the cadre members of the Donquixote family, almost all of them were written by Doflamingo. Virgo, Toripal, Diamante, Pica, Gladius, Lao Ji, Senor, Mahabasis. And the following Beckman, Helding, Bellamy, Arlong, U Rouge, Tetzolo, Quinn, Guy Saw et al. Including the names of Monet, BABY5 and even Hancock, Doflamingo has written them all. Clearly, Doflamingo is grooming the Donquixote family's system. In Doflamingo's view, the previous system of Donquixote family is no longer suitable for the operation of Donquixote family, which is now larger and more involved. Large-scale adjustments are required to match the subsequent progress of various plans. The most important of these is the adjustment of cadre functions and status. Combat troops, medical troops, intelligence troops, economic and financial departments, security departments, technology development departments, support troops. There are quite a lot of divisions and alliances. According to the current plan, there cannot be only one combat army. Must be plural in order to be able to support the follow-up plan. Doflamingo was writing and drawing on the paper, and from time to time he rubbed his chin and muttered a few words. In that case, let's first list the suitable and necessary institutions other than combat troops. Doflamingo turned his pen and began to write on paper again. First of all, economics and finance. This can be said to be the top priority of the Donquixote family, or that sentence, a few $100s a month. What fate do you play? The salary is not in place, among the huge grassroots personnel under the Donquixote family, and the various departments to be formed later, who is willing to work for you? Therefore, economics and finance are one of the core units. Judging from the current situation of the Donquixote family, the most suitable person to be the leader of this department is still Torre Pole, an old melon, and since Tetzolo joined the Donquixote family, he is not taking classes with finance and economics teachers, is to serve Toribol in North Blue, so the two of them, one in front and one in pair, will become the leaders of this team. Doflamingo is more at ease. So, Doflamingo wrote on the paper, 1. Economics and finance, Tetzolo and Toripal. After roughly confirming this, Doflamingo turned to the technology development department. Needless to say, if you want to make money, apart from finance, you have to have physical products to sell. Shenshin Donquixote family's arms business is in full swing, relying on technology development. And there is no need to say much about this. Quinn and Guy soon fell on the paper. Can Master Tom be added later? Doflamingo pondered after finishing writing the names of Quinn and Guy. There must be a medical army. As long as any large violent organization wants to develop normally, there must be a medical system behind it. Even if it's a gang of pirates, they have to arrange a ship's doctor. As for the medical team, there is no doubt that it is enough to arrange for Dr. Nelson. If Trafalgar Law grows up later, he can inherit his father's career and go into battle. Over the years, Dr. Nelson has cultivated many disciples, medical students, etc., but it is obviously not enough. There are also doctors in Dressrosa. Well, speaking of it, what happened to the old king of the Drum Kingdom? Has his stupid son Wapol succeeded to the throne? If he succeeds, Wapol will drive away all the doctors in the Drum Kingdom, leaving only Dr. 20 to serve him. At that time, I can pick up one leakage. Doflamingo stroked his chin. In Doflamingo's opinion, it is best for any technician not to use coercive means to make the opponent work for him, which is why he left so much room for Master Tom by going around. Because technology is too simple for experts in the industry to leave a back door or something. Maybe if you have resentment in your heart, this back door will kill you anytime. Even more so in the medical industry. Therefore, Doflamingo did not plan to forcibly rob the Drum Kingdom's doctors, otherwise he would be causing trouble for himself. Don't worry about the doctors who were forcibly robbed. It's better to wait for Wapol to die by himself. In this way, the regularization and systematization of the medical force is imperative. Doflamingo recorded this idea on paper again. Intelligence troops. Virgo has always been low-key and his mind is still delicate. It can be considered, and Mahabasi is also okay. But he is not very convenient. Think about it carefully, this aspect. Our Donquixote family really seems to be lacking something, mused Doflamingo. The intelligence agency of the Donquixote family has, but it has always been very loose. Most of the intelligence comes from the connections between the Dark World and Doflamingo. And because of Doflamingo's foresight, in short, Doflamingo himself rarely uses information, so he instinctively ignored this organization. But if you want the organization to develop healthily and become bigger and stronger, intelligence agencies must not be sloppy. Why don't we let Virgo take on this responsibility first, and later, let's see if Lu Chi has talent in this area. Doflamingo decided after thinking about it. In addition to these institutions, there is also the security department. To put it bluntly, it is the security institution. This institution, for the big guys like Doflamingo, seems to be useless, but even for the sake of face and ostentation, we can't live without it. Moreover, if Doflamingo doesn't need it, wouldn't Dr. Nelson need it? Even Quinn, wouldn't Guy, a weak researcher, need it? Wouldn't Master Tom, who will come later, not need it? Thinking about it this way, he felt that this organization was very necessary. Doflamingo immediately decided to form a guard force headed by U Rouge and assisted by two idiots, Gladius and Bellamy. In terms of combat, should we divide the Murloc troops? Helding's giant troops should also be included? And to carry out tough battles, need a special attack force composed of strong and powerful elites. Doflamingo calculated a few more waves. After a while, he suddenly froze for a moment, and said to himself in amazement, I'm so F***king. I'm almost thinking of a Gote 13. Dressrosa Royal Courts. Gote 13? It seems to be quite clever. Thinking of this, Doflamingo quickly took out another notebook and began to relist the plan on it. Thinking about it, Seirades Gote 13 is already a very comprehensive organization. Doflamingo murmured to himself and began to write in his notebook. The first team, the commanding force, this can be handed over to the intelligent brain Beckman. With Beckman's strength and IQ, there is no problem at all for this position. The second division, the secret mobile unit. This can be regarded as the intelligence department in his Donquixote family. Just paste Virgo's name on it, and let him be the captain of the second division. The third team, the support team. This Doflamingo thought about it a little bit, and changed it to a Murloc unit. After all, Doflamingo's recruitment of Murloc members does not mean that they are eyeing their so-called 10 times human strength, combat power. It was to quickly rescue the wounded and capable people who fell into the water during naval battles. So the nature of this is quite similar to that of the support unit. Doflamingo immediately changed it to a Murloc unit. For the captain, let's consider Arlong for now. Arlong has seen too many Donquixote family masters recently, and the original arrogance that was hid is gone. Now he no longer dares to look down on humans. He is working hard to learn hockey and other powers. Maybe there will be some surprises for him in the future. The fourth team, the medical unit, there is no need to change this, just fill in Dr. Nelson and it will be over. The fifth division, the battlefield rescue team. Well, the feeling conflicted with the third division. Doflamingo thought about it for a while, and directly changed it to a giant troop, which was also included in the combat system. Needless to say, the captain, Helding, will do. Yes, Lily Ernst Mark can also be arranged to assist Helding. The sixth division, what kind of noble force? Doflamingo doesn't need this stuff at all. After thinking about it for a while, he changed it to the economic and financial department headed by Toribol and Tezzolo. The seventh division is the guard team. This nature does not need to be changed. Urogue is the boss, and Bellamy and Gladius are the assistants. The eighth division, said to be an intelligence team, feels that it overlaps with the second division in nature. After Doflamingo thought about it, he decided to restructure it into a logistics department composed of Pika, Cora and other cadres who have nothing to do with combat. It's mining, construction, and the formation of armed transport teams, and that's it. Team number 9. Prison, torture, and confession forces. This must be there. And it's something that Doflamingo didn't think of just now. After thinking about it, this matter can be handed over to the Senor, so Doflamingo filled in the Senor's name. The 10th Squad, the Guard Patrol Force, seems to overlap with the functions of the Guard Force, and there is no need to create a separate one, so Doflamingo filled in the names of Monet, Baby 5, Hancock and others after a little thought. As the master of the Dress Rosa Royal Court, and the monarch of the entire Dress Rosa, I will make a private item for myself and form a team of maids and secretaries. Is there anything wrong with it? After all, this so-called Gote 13 feet is for me. And Doflamingo decided that in the future, only women will be recruited in this team, and it will be over. The 11th Squad, because there are giants fighting troops, so this can be changed to a regular fighting force. As for the specific person in charge, Doflamingo thought about it. The cadres that the Donquixote family can fight are basically released. Come out, it seems that this guy Diamante is still idle. So I filled in the name of Diamante, and Lao Ji can also be arranged in the follow-up. When this unit has nothing to do, it can also cultivate new seedlings for the family. This is what these two people like to toss about the most. Make the most of it. Team 12, Technology Development Bureau. You don't even need to change this, just put Quinn and Guy on it. Team 13, Purification Team. Well, it has nothing to do with their Donquixote family. Doflamingo thought about it for a long time, but he didn't feel that there are any organizations and teams that need to be listed separately. So Doflamingo marked the team as a tentative. Well, no captain candidate was selected. That's good, you can't just get stuck in the position right from the start, you have to leave some room for improvement for the young people who come later. Fufufurfurofuru, Doflamingo smiled evilly. It's not just the reserved 13th team. Doflamingo thinks that this is the arranged team that he tacitly agrees with now. If there is anything inappropriate in the future, it should be changed and it should be replaced. The main one is the able one. Looking at the list in his hand, Doflamingo was very satisfied. The reform of the cadre system can be carried out according to this model. Of course, he still needs to communicate and discuss with the rest of the cadres, to see if you have any better suggestions. As the head of the Donquixote family, Doflamingo needs the actual power in his hands, mainly the right to appoint personnel. The rest of the matters can be dealt with if they are interested, and can be dealt with if they are important, and the rest can be delegated, so that the cadres can use their talents according to the areas they are responsible for. Otherwise, he, Doflamingo, will have to do everything by himself, so why do we need so many cadres? Just like now, Doflamingo has set up the framework of this, Dress Rosa Gote 13 feet and arranged personnel appointments. For the remaining things, under this framework, how to develop, how to better and faster running in, these are the things that the appointed cadres need to do. Doflamingo is thinking about these things and feels that this framework is really good. Virgo knocked on the door that was not closed tightly, walked in and said, Dover. As soon as Doflamingo saw him, he waved happily. Virgo, you came just in time. Look, didn't you say that you need to make some changes to the cadre structure? To adapt to our growing family size. This is what I have been thinking about recently. What do you think of the new structure that came out? When Virgo heard that Doflamingo came up with the new structure so quickly, he was a little surprised. He suppressed what he was going to say, walked over a few steps, put the newspaper in his hand on the table, and picked up Doflamingo. Notebook looked up. Dressrosa Royal Court Gote 13. Virgo muttered, always feeling a little strange, but after thinking about it, it seems very appropriate. After all, Virgo feels that the existence of these people, to put it bluntly, is not just to serve the young master. It is very suitable for the young master's royal court to be guarded by them. In general, I think it's pretty good, but specifically, we should hold a family cadre meeting to discuss with everyone. Virgo quickly read Doflamingo's plan and said with a smile. Doflamingo rolled his eyes and said, it's as if you didn't say what you said, but that's what I really thought about. By the way, why are you looking for me? Oh. Virgo tossed the newspaper on the table to Doflamingo and said, there is an interesting piece of news, specially for your fans to read. Interesting news. Doflamingo reached out to take the newspaper, opened it and took a look. There was also a look of surprise on his face. But after the astonishment passed, it became clear and a little helpless to be funny. And the news he read just now described a fierce battle in the New World. The place of the fierce battle was located in Wano-kuni, and the two sides of the fierce battle, Kaido of the Beasts and Gecko Moria, and the two sides went to the pirate group. Judging from the description of the battle, Moria is not as hip as Doflamingo imagined. He dared to challenge Kaido, showing that he really has two brushes. It's just that the fierceness of the battle was somewhat beyond Moria's imagination. Kaido's fighting power and cruel style are simply outrageous. During the fierce battle with Moria, he counted one of Moria's subordinates as one, and slaughtered them all. Moria's mentality collapsed because of this, and she was hanged and beaten by Kaido in the end, and she was seriously injured. Originally, Kaido seemed to be planning to kill Moria, but Moria's life-saving skills played a role, and mysteriously disappeared from the battlefield. Doflamingo was not surprised when he saw the news. He guessed that Ryoma's tomb would be stolen in a while, right? And the reason why Moria robs the tomb is because the blow of all the partners dying is really too great, so the whole person is a bit extreme, thinking that if you don't have it from the beginning, you won't develop. So he's building a zombie army. As long as I'm dead from the start, you can't kill me? Steal a lot of corpses of powerful characters, and after forming a powerful zombie army, come and kill Kaido. To be honest, Moria can come up with such an outrageous operation, and Doflamingo doubts his mental state when he made up his mind. New World's defeat. Moria is probably going to be kicked out of New World, but first think Marine should be very fond of this loser, Furofrafor. Flamingo smiled evilly. Moria did lose, but his ability to survive the fight with Kaido is enough to prove his strength. And his whole group's perish, and Kaido's deep enmity, are the attributes that Marine likes. Such a person who is destined to be immortal with Kaido is very suitable to be 7 warlords of the sea.